Chapter 1264. The seal breaks. A resplendent gleam of light immediately flashed through the Spirit King's eyes when he saw the space restabilize. The dark sword floating beside him immediately erupted with a dazzling silver light as an extremely powerful sword intent permeated the surroundings. Under the contamination of the powerful sword intent, the violent wind, the air, and even the abundant energy of the world in the surroundings became strands of invisible sword chi. Swish! The dark metal sword was surrounded by a coat of powerful silver light as it vanished into the tunnel in front of them as a white streak of light. The tunnel between the world of Forsaken Saints and Mercenary City was filled with extremely violent streaks of energy, causing the space in it to become extremely unstable. The entire tunnel would distort from time to time. At this moment, a dazzling streak of white light flashed through the tunnel, moving extremely quick. This was the Spirit King's dark metal sword. The sword seemed completely ordinary and was not eye-catching in any particular way, but it possessed great power. The strength of the metal sword greatly surpassed the Emperor armaments on the Tianyuan continent, and even the Emperor armaments of the 10 Protector clans could not compare to it. The rather unstable space would begin to ripple violently wherever the sword passed by, but it was extremely tough, so it did not shatter. On the other side, the web-like seal covered the entrance of the tunnel. The metal sword passed through the spatial tunnel with an unstoppable force. It was coated by a radiant glow of silver light, striking the seal viciously. Boom! With a deafening boom, the sword struck the center of the seal and the great force turned the formation into a conical shape. Then, the sword erupted radiantly, producing rain-like droplets of energy that attacked the seal, violently destroying it. The seal immediately began to violently flicker and the energy that maintained it was consumed at an extremely terrifying rate. Xiaoling immediately became extremely nervous. She placed her hands on the seal as origin energy was rapidly channeled into the formation. She tried to maintain the final seal. However, the seal only managed to block the Spirit King's attack with great difficulty even after being supported by Xiaoling's own power. Although the seal was powerful, it was only enough to repel the attacks of experts in the origin realm. Once it encountered attacks at the level of godhood, even if it was from the weakest godhood expert, it would break for sure. Although the Spirit King was only in the origin realm, he possessed the power to rival the weakest expert who had obtained godhood, so the seal could not be maintained before his great strength. If it were not for Xiaoling's support, the seal probably would have been smashed through long ago. However, Xiaoling could not last much longer either, because the energy she had accumulated over countless years had almost been consumed. The metal sword was locked in a stalemate with the seal for several seconds before finally expending all the power it had and returning to the world of Forsaken Saints. Xiaoling became relieved, but when she discovered that all the energy in the underground space had been consumed, she immediately became terrified. She sobbed, "Oh no, oh no. There's no more energy to keep up the seal. What do I do? Master, where are you? Come back quick. If you don't return now, your seal will be destroyed by bad people. That bad person is so strong. I can't beat him. Master, come back quick." The Spirit King stood unmoving at the highest point of the world mountains, as if he was all that existed in that world. At this moment, the metal sword that had dulled emerged from the spatial tunnel. As if the sword was conscious, it flew into the Spirit King's hand without anyone's control. "It's time." At this moment, the Spirit King spoke in heavy voice. Suddenly, a supreme presence surged from him in all directions. He slowly hovered in the air, reaching an altitude of 10 meters as terrifying energy filled the surroundings. At that moment, he seemed to have become a mighty spirit. He gripped his sword as he stood there, causing the sky to tremble. The several dozen Origin Realm experts all looked at him from behind in fear. All of them could sense the incomparably vast pressure radiating from the Spirit King. Even the 8 Returnance experts were not exceptions. All of them felt that the Spirit King was invincible. Seal Breaker. Suddenly, the Spirit King roared out as the pure origin energy without him surged into the metal sword, immediately causing it to erupt with an unprecedented brightness and causing it loudly resonate. Afterward, the Spirit King stabbed out with a flash. The strike possessed an indescribable profoundness. With that single strike, the world dulled while the air stopped moving. Time seemed to have halted, and even the surrounding space oscillated with a ripple. The Spirit King stabbed the metal sword at the tunnel with a speed that was difficult to observe with the naked eye, attacking the seal on the other side again. When the seal came in contact with the metal sword, an extremely profound energy began to spread out. It was like poison. As soon as it came in contact with the seal, the powerful seal began to dissolve at a visible rate. Xiao Ling was surprised when she saw this. She poured everything she had into the seal, but no matter how hard she tried, she could not slow down the rate at which the seal collapsed. Boom! A few seconds later, the seal finally shattered with a rumble, causing the entire underground space to violently tremble. Xiao Ling stared blankly at the broken seal while her face became extremely pale. She was filled with fear as fat tears uncontrollably rolled down her cheeks as she broke into tears. She sobbed, "It's done for. It's all over. The seal's been broken. The seal's been broken. Master, where are you? Come back, the seal's been broken. The seal's been broken. What do I do?" The moment the seal shattered, Mercenary City suffered the most powerful jolt as well. Whole regions of Earth collapsed as the cracks, which crisscrossed the ground, all expanded to the width of a meter. All the structures in the city had collapsed, including Mo Tianyin's sculpture at the center. All the experts of Mercenary City, including the ones who had hurried over from various places, watched the tragedy unfold with sunken faces. At this moment, no one was able to lighten up, including the protector clans who were envious of Mercenary City for obtaining a Saint Emperor. This was because Tian Jian had already told all the Saint Kings present the information he had learned from Jian Chen. If it was any other time, none of them would have believed such an unrealistic matter, but the collapse of Mercenary City was the best evidence without a doubt. It was no longer up to whether they believed it or not. If the seal to the world of Forsaken Saints really had been destroyed and the experts there launched an invasion, how was the Tian Yuan continent supposed to repel them with their puny strength? This was definitely a calamity for the Tian Yuan continent that might even affect the entire world. The dark, metal sword returned to the Spirit King's side again back in the world of Forsaken Saints. It hovered quietly by his side as the Spirit King stared at the spatial tunnel in front of him. He finally showed a smile of delight. "Spirit King, may I ask if the seal on the other side has been destroyed?" The alluring, returnance woman nervously asked. The Spirit King slowly turned around. He seemed to be roughly in his 30s, and he was not handsome at all. His appearance was extremely ordinary. His eyebrows were sharp, like swords, while his face was weathered, having survived through wind and storms of blood. "I've already destroyed the seal on the other side, but the space in the tunnel has become extremely unstable after several attacks from me. It's filled with chaotic streams of space, so we can't pass through it. We can only go after it has stabilized," answered the Spirit King. With that, the Origin Realm experts immediately beamed in joy. One of the Returnant's old men excitedly said, "The Spirit King really is the hope of our world, to have completed the world's wish from so many years ago all by himself. Over 200 years ago, our world gave birth to 5 reciprocity Spirit Kings, but they had failed to smash through the seal even after working together. The current Spirit King possesses the power to rival all 5 of them all by himself. The Spirit King is the strongest expert of the world of Forsaken Saints in all of history." The Spirit King did not react in any particular way to the old man's compliments. His expression remained as nonchalant as before. He said, "Origin Realm experts will bring very great pressure to the spatial tunnel if they enter, so they can only pass through once the space has completely stabilized and the tunnel has been reinforced. However, experts below the origin realm are not restricted by this. All we need to do is wait for the streams of space in there to calm down. The weaker the person, the safer they are. One of you stay here and keep guard. We'll send some people through to investigate the situation on the other side first. Do not forget our intentions. Yes, Spirit King, all the Origin Realm experts replied at the same time. Afterward, the Spirit King flew down the mountain with his sword on his back. He completely ignored the spatial cracks that could even claim the lives of those in the Origin Realm halfway down the mountain. Chapter 1265, Countermeasures. Several hundred Saint Kings currently hovered above Mercenarcy City. Every single one of them had their eyebrows furrowed tightly with extremely stern expressions. After they learned that a tunnel to another world was truly sealed beneath the city, they all contacted every Saint King they knew, leading to even more hurrying over. In the end, the Saint Kings gathered at Mercenary City only increased. This was because all of them could feel that this was something significant, directly tied to the safety of the continent. It was far more severe than the invasion of the Beast God continent before. Every single one of them was responsible for protecting the continent, even if many of them were independent. Great Elder, what should we do now? And can that seal block the attacks from the experts of the world of Forsaken Saints or not? A Great Elder of a Protector clan asked in worry. With so many people, all they could do was gather there. They did not even possess the strength to take any action, let alone know about the situation of the seal. I don't know about the situation underground either. Even if this land has lost the protection of the barrier's strength, it's still not a place we can just barge into. We can only ask the spirit of the barrier to gain a detailed understanding, replied Tianjian with a heavy voice. Does the barrier spirit still exist now that the barrier of the city is gone? A ninth heavenly layer Saint King asked in surprise. He was also a great elder of a protector clan. No one else knew the true identity of the barrier spirit on the present continent other than Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress. Even Tianjian did not know. All of them believed that the barrier spirit was a spirit that had been born from the barrier and was dependent on the barrier. With so many years, the barrier spirit has always guarded the seal beneath Mercenary City. The barrier is gone now, but I am almost certain that the barrier spirit still exists. I just don't know how to contact it, said Tianjian. But, just as he finished speaking, a girl's cries of sorrow suddenly rang out. Her cries were extremely sorrowful, and when all the Saint Kings heard her sobs, their expressions all changed, because they could not find the source despite hearing them clearly. It seemed to have originated from nowhere. Have the experts of the world of Forsaken Saints come? The ancestral emperor of the Felicity Empire heavily asked. His expression became extremely horrible. He could sense the person's strength just from the sobs. No. It's the barrier spirit. Tianjian cried out as he beamed. As expected, a girl who seemed to be 12 or 13 years old slowly appeared in the air as soon as Tianjian finished speaking. When she first appeared, she was just a faint image, but her figure started to rapidly consolidate at a visible rate. Within just a few seconds, she had become completely tangible. She seemed fleshy, far more realistic than any time Jian Chen had seen her. This time, Xiaoling did not hide her existence. Her figure was completely revealed, allowing everyone to see her clearly as she constantly rubbed away her tears. Everyone turned their gazes toward her and became filled with curiosity and shock. Including Tianjian, this was the first time anyone here had seen Xiaoling. What had taken a lot of them by surprise was that the barrier spirit was actually such a cute girl. Barrier spirit, what's the situation underground? Is the seal still whole? Tianjian nervously inquired. It's broken, it's broken. The seal's been broken by the bad people on the other side. Boo-hoo, Master's seal has been destroyed. Oh no, what do I do? Xiaoling sobbed. She was filled with a sense of helplessness. The complexions of all the people present became extremely horrible, and some of them even paled slightly. Barrier spirit, what's the strength of the world of forsaken saints? A great elder from a protector clan asked a heavy question. I don't know, but the person who broke the seal is so strong. He's at least at reciprocity. I can't beat him. Xiaoling became terrified as soon as they mentioned the Spirit King. Reciprocity? Is that a realm beyond Saint Emperor? An independent Saint King mumbled. Even the 10 protector clans, which had existed for many years, did not have too great of an understanding regarding the cultivation realms beyond Saint Emperor. Master said that above sainthood is the origin realm. The origin realm has 3 smaller levels, which are receival, returnance, and reciprocity. The person who broke the seal is at reciprocity at the very least, but I'm only at returnance, so how can I beat him? Don't look down on the strength between returnance and reciprocity. Master said that the difference between the two is like Saint King and Saint Emperor, Xiaoling explained. All the people present immediately gasped. All of them understood exactly how vast the difference between Saint King and Saint Emperor was. The difference was as immense as the earth and the sky. They could not be compared. What? How is the world of forsaken saints so powerful? If we compare those who have just surpassed Saint Emperor to Saint Rulers, doesn't that mean that Saint Emperors are just heaven Saint Masters? And we Saint Kings would only be equivalent to Earth Saint Masters. Using several hundred Earth Saint Masters to fight against a Saint Emperor? What is this joke? An independent Saint Kings cried out in disbelief. The disparity was just far too great, so great that it was unimaginable. Xiaoling worriedly said, the tunnel has already been opened, and without much longer, there will be people from the other side who will come over. Master once said that he entered that world all by himself and killed a lot of experts. I don't know if those people hold a grudge for Master. If they do, they'll definitely come to kill us once they come over. We better find something to do quick. Everyone was speechless and moaned inside. The world of forsaken saints even had experts who stood at the apex of the origin realm, so no one was certain whether they had others at receival and returnance. Even in ancient times when the Tianyuan continent was most prosperous, they would not be their opponents, let alone now. The city lord left behind an extremely tough divine hall in Mercenary City back then. I wonder if it'll be useful, Tian Jian said with a deep voice. The divine hall's power was evident. It could even kill Saint Emperors, but Tian Jian was not confident about experts of the origin realm because the divine hall had never been used against them before, so it was obviously impossible for him to know whether it could block their attacks or not. Xiaoling's eyes immediately lit up. She excitedly responded, oh yeah, we still have the divine hall that Master left us. The divine hall is very tough. Probably even I can't break through it. I just don't know if it can block attacks from experts at reciprocity, but there's no other choice now. Quickly move Master's divine hall to guard the entrance. Okay, I'll go refine the divine hall immediately. Tian Jian left with that. He knew that time was very tight, and he needed to refine the divine hall in the shortest amount of time possible. There's also Fairy Hao Yu's Bright Moon Divine Hall. The divine hall is extraordinarily tough. Even Saint Emperors cannot destroy it. We can borrow the divine hall to guard the tunnel. Although I don't know if it can stop them, but it'll be better than nothing, said a great elder of a protector clan. Chapter 1266, Violet Cloud Peaches. As soon as someone mentioned that they wanted to use the Bright Moon Divine Hall to guard the entrance of the tunnel, Changyang Zhu Yunxiao's face immediately sank. The divine hall only belonged to Yu Yu, and Yu Yu was Jian Chen's fiancé. If they really managed to obtain the divine hall to plug the entrance, getting it back would not be easy. This was because the Bright Moon Divine Hall was also a structure that even Saint Emperors could not smash through. In order for the people of the Protector clans to maintain their authority on the continent, they could not let such a powerful divine hall exist. The people of the Protector clans dared not to touch Yu Yu before. First, because they would not be able to do anything to her if she hid in the divine hall. Second, Jian Chen was beside her as well as 3 powerful magical beasts that stood on equal ground with Saint Emperors. As a result, the Protector clans could only helplessly watch the powerful divine hall end up with Yu Yu without being able to do anything. However, the situation was completely different now. The existence of the world of Forsaken Saints was an extremely great threat to the Tian Yuan continent. It could even be described as a disaster that could impact the entire world. Using this as an opportunity to take away the divine hall was all in the name of the greater good, so no one could say anything, and if the divine hall was destroyed, the people of the Protector clans wouldn't mind that happening. However, the people who would end up losing out would be his side. Changyang Zhu Yunshao made up his mind to prevent this at all costs. The Bright Moon Divine Hall is indeed extremely tough and the materials used to construct it are extremely rare, forged from substances of the moon. However, Fairy Hao Yu, who crafted it, was only a peak Saint Emperor at most. She did not reach the Origin Realm. Her Divine Hall probably can block the attacks of Saint Emperors at most, and it'll be useless before those of the Origin Realm. A great elder of the Yangji sect sneered when he heard that, we're currently facing a devastating threat. No matter what it is, we will try it as long as there's a sliver of hope of stopping the experts from the world of Forsaken Saints. We, the 10 Protector clans, have quite a few divine halls, but all of them can only block the attacks of Saint Kings. They're completely useless before Saint Emperors, and with the entire continent in perspective, only the Divine Hall of Mercenary City and the Bright Moon Divine Hall can perhaps block attacks from experts of the Origin Realm. That's right. We can no longer talk about personal benefits or losses at this moment. The Tian Yuan continent is facing danger and every single person is responsible for its safety. Brother, I'll visit Flame City with you and borrow the Bright Moon Divine Hall. If they don't comply, we can only react correspondingly, said a great elder of the Yun sect righteously. He seemed like he was solemn on the surface, but he sneered inside. Jian Chen, you killed a great elder of my Yuan sect and completely embarrassed us. We might not be able to take revenge on you, but you cannot stop us from taking away your girl's divine hall. The great elder of the Yangji sect immediately beamed now that he obtained the support of a great elder from the Yun sect. He looked around and said, everyone, may I ask if there is anyone else willing to come with us to Flame City, to borrow the Bright Moon Divine Hall and safeguard the Tian Yuan continent? An independent Saint King stepped forward and sternly said, I may have secluded myself as a hermit and never took part in any conflicts, but this matter directly relates to the fate of the Tian Yuan continent, so I obviously cannot stand down. Allow me to accompany you. If the Bright Moon Divine Hall can stop the invasion of the world of Forsaken Saints, the owner of the Divine Hall will commit a service of great merit. A few other Saint Kings stepped forward after him. Almost all of them were independent cultivators who stayed isolated in desolate regions like hermits. In the end, the Yangji sect and the Yuan sect sent 2 Saint Kings each to travel to Mercenary City with another 5 independent Saint Kings, for a total of 9 people. Changyang Zhu Yunshao panicked inside when he saw this. Just when he wanted to say something, he was stopped by Changyang Zhu Shao through a message, Yunshao, this is not the time for you to stop them. The people of the Yangji sect and the Yuan sect are very biased against Jian Chen, so if you want to stop them, be careful about getting dragged into it as well as becoming a public target of scorn. Changyang Zhu Yunshao fell silent and sighed inside. He wanted to help you keep the Divine Hall very much, but he could do nothing. The Grand Elder of Mercenary City said, everyone, the world of Forsaken Saints doesn't just pose a threat to our Tian Yuan continent. Even the sea race, the magical beasts, and the 100 races will face a similar threat. I believe we should send envoys to all 3 races with a request for reinforcements. Although our strength is extremely insignificant compared to the world of forsaken saints, we need to stop them from coming over with everything we have. The Grand Elder cannot be more correct, but we are not on good terms with the 3 other races. We've even fallen out a little with the magical beasts and the 100 races, so I believe we should think through this some more before deciding, said a great elder of a protector clan. Then please come into the miniature world of our mercenary city. We can discuss countermeasures there. Jian Chen had no clue that the seal beneath mercenary city had been destroyed since he was in the Xianhuang microcosm. He was currently traveling with Tai Ta, making their way to the center. He came across a few regions with some vegetation. Every single region with vegetation would contain springs of life as well as Xianhuang beasts. Jian Chen would take half the spring water from every region as well as the essence that had been nurtured by the spring of life. The essence was the true object of value. It was extremely beneficial to the soul, and the sea goddess required this as a material to reconstruct her body. Along the way, more and more spring water accumulated in Jian Chen's artifact space. It had exceeded 40,000 liters. Half of it was at the first grade of the immortal tier. Over 10,000 liters was of the second while the remaining amount was of the third. Third grade of the immortal tier was the highest quality spring water Jian Chen had come across so far. Other than the spring water, Jian Chen had found many various heavenly resources as well. There were ginsengs, ganodermas, knotwood, and so on from the ones he could recognize. Every single one of them had exceeded 100,000 years in maturity, and all of them had been tainted with faint Xianhuang qi due to growing in the Xianhuang microcosm, allowing them to increase in value. Jian Chen had come across over 10 immortal tier heavenly resources that he had never seen or heard before, but they were of the second grade at most. Jian Chen had also learned that the sword spirits did not care about these heavenly resources at all. The only reason they got him to collect them was because they would be useful to him. Jian Chen also came across another 3 comprehension tea trees and removed all their leaves. Unfortunately, all of them were of the first grade. Other than that, Jian Chen had slain several dozen class 7 and 8 Xianhuang beasts and collected the energy crystals that corresponded to monster cores. Although Jian Chen had only spent 7 days in the Xianhuang microcosm, Jian Chen was extremely satisfied with what he had obtained in that time frame. Tai Ta was the same. He had always been smiling in those days and could not even close his mouth since he had also obtained several dozen energy crystals, all of them of the 7th or 8th class. When Jian Chen crossed several dozen kilometers of barren land and arrived at another region of life, he discovered a 3-meter-tall peach tree growing there. It was covered with fist-sized peaches, violet in color. All of them were actually the exact same size. Master, these are immortal peaches, the violet cloud peaches. It only bears a single fruit every 9,000 years, and it can only bear 108 peaches throughout its life. Consuming the peach can directly increase the level of cultivation of the person. The highest quality peaches are of the 9th grade in the immortal tier. They can increase your level of cultivation by 4,500 years worth. The peaches in front of you are only of the first grade, and consuming one of them can only increase your cultivation by 500 years. Chapter 1267, The Sword Spirit's World. A peach can increase my cultivation by 500 years? Ziying, just how much is 500 years? And how is it calculated? Jian Chen asked in some doubt. A few saint rulers could never reach Saint King within their lifespan while others would only require a few decades. Jian Chen was extremely curious to know the exact amount of 500 years worth of cultivation. Ziying pondered silently before responding, Master, there's quite a few heavenly resources that can directly increase the cultivation of the user like the peaches back in our world, and all of them are measured by the number of years they can increase. This amount is calculated from the amount of cultivation gained by a person with ordinary talent as they absorb immortal energy in the given time frame. A peach that can increase someone's cultivation by 500 years contains the amount of energy equivalent to the achievements of a person with ordinary talent after cultivating for 500 years. But some people with impressive or astonishing talent will cultivate extremely quickly. They will only need 100 years, just a few decades, or a couple years to reach what an ordinary person would achieve in 500 years. Jian Chen finally gained an understanding of the 500 years of cultivation the peaches could provide him with. He thought, a single immortal peach can increase my cultivation by 500 years. It does sound rather terrifying, but it's just the achievements of a person with ordinary talent in a 500-year time span. On the other hand, I've attained achievements that some people might not even attain in 3,000 years within less than half a century. And the amount of energy my chaotic body needs is unimaginably vast. Looks like the effects of the peaches won't be as great on me as I initially imagined. Ziying, how many peaches do I have to eat to reach the 4th layer? And if I want to reach the 5th, how many would that be? Jian Chen asked. He was tempted to immediately ingest the peaches to strengthen his chaotic body after learning about the effects. Master, a first-grade immortal peach is roughly equivalent to 2 Class 9 monster cores. Master's chaotic body may have reached the peak of the 3rd layer, but a single first-grade peach won't be enough to reach the 4th layer. You will require 3 at the very least. However, the immortal peaches cannot be eaten as Master has imagined. After ingesting the first one, you must wait 100 years before ingesting a second, or it'll have no effects at all, Ziyang explained rather bitterly. This obliterated Jian Chen's thoughts of eating a whole lot of them at once. Jian Chen became disappointed with that, but he also learned that he needed to ingest a violet cloud peach that could provide 1,500 years worth of cultivation to reach the 4th layer, or 6 Class 9 monster cores. Although he still had the Class 8 and 9 monster cores he had obtained from the Heaven's Incense School, Jian Chen did not plan on using them right now since he would not necessarily reach the 4th layer with them, and it would waste a lot of time as well. He did not have much time in the Xianhuang microcosm. He wanted to use the remaining time to find as many heavenly resources as he could to bring out with him. However, what did shock Jian Chen was that a single first-grade peach was equivalent to 2 Class 9 monster cores. Perhaps because Ziying understood what Jian Chen was thinking, he explained, Master, the stronger the person becomes, the faster they can absorb immortal energy. The people from our world cannot be compared to the Tian Yuan continent. The accumulated energy of 500 years from any single one of them with ordinary talent is equivalent to several thousand years from a person with impressive talent on the Tian Yuan continent, which is why a first-grade peach contains enough energy to rival 2 Class 9 monster cores. Also, the energy from our world is at a level greater than the Tian Yuan continent. If a Saint Emperor from the Tian Yuan continent goes to our world to cultivate, their rate will increase by several-fold at least. Not only is this because the energy of our world is several times more abundant than the Tian Yuan continent, it also has immortal energy that is on a higher level. The immortal energy is on the same level as the origin energy that Master knows about. Is that so? Jian Chen gained a better understanding. He could not help but asked, Ziying, Qing Sua, just what was the world you two came from like? This question had weighed on Jian Chen's heart for many years now. He had once asked this question before, but the sword spirits declined to answer because he was still too weak. Now, he finally could not help but ask again. Both of them fell silent. After quite a long while, Qing Sua said, Master, we originally planned on answering this question after you reached Saint Emperor, but you're not far from that level now. Since Master wants to know so much, we'll tell you. A sliver of reminiscence appeared in Qing Sua's eyes as she continued, Master, the world we came from is called the Immortals' World. It's a higher world that's even greater than the Tian Yuan continent. Saint Emperors in our world are only people at the lowest level. In our world, they are like newly born infants, having just stepped upon the path of cultivation. Even with mental preparation, Jian Chen was greatly shocked by what they said. Right now, he could not even match up to a Saint Emperor. To him, they were undefeatable existences, yet they were actually insignificant in the world where the sword spirits came from. Jian Chen had been taken aback by this fact. Qing Suo continued, back in Master's former world, Qing Suo and I were greatly injured due to the destruction of our swords. We were in a slumber and recovered at an extremely slow rate. Afterward, the familiar presence from Master's cultivation of the Azulite sword's law awakened us. Back then, we discovered Master in a world with extremely thin energy, yet you were able to attain such accomplishments with the sword at such a young age all by yourself through an incomplete copy of the cultivation method, so we were drawn in by your talent. At that time, we just happened to make it the moment before Master died, so Ziying and I guarded Master's soul and wanted to take Master to the Immortals world. We believed that Master would definitely achieve impressive accomplishments when cultivating in the Immortals world with Master's talent in the sword. It was just that we had never expected that we had not recovered enough strength. We were unable to break through the barriers of the worlds. Coupled with the fact that we expended our energy extremely quickly as we traveled through space, we could not last much longer, which was why we accidentally brought you to the Tianyuan continent. Jian Chen could not help but think back to the moment when he had fought Dugu Qiubai in the past. Back then, the two of them had perished together. He had accidentally come to the Tianyuan continent with the help of the sword spirits, but he just wondered what Dugu Qiubai's situation was. Did he die back then? Jian Chen gently sighed inside. He became slightly disconsolate and said, Ziying, Qing Suo, I will be going to the Immortals world sooner or later. Jian Chen also understood that it would become more difficult to raise his chaotic body to the later layers. The Tianyuan continent did not have enough resources to support his growth, so he needed to proceed to the Immortals world if he wanted his chaotic body to keep growing, so he could find even more resources. Ziying opened his mouth. He wanted to say something, but he held it back in the end. Only he and Qing Suo understood that since they had come here, returning to the Immortals world would be riddled with obstructions. It would never be that easy. 2 5th Heavenly Layer Saint King Xianhuang beasts guarded the immortal peaches. They were finished off by Jian Chen and Tai Ta without any effort at all. Even though the two of them possessed very tough bodies, they were unable to stand up against Jian Chen and Tai Ta who possessed extraordinary battle prowess. In the end, the two of them took an energy crystal each. Jian Chen did not miss the corpses either. Afterward, Jian Chen began to collect the violent cloud peaches. The tree had a total of 108 of them, and he picked all of them. He could fit one to around a dozen peaches in each jade box he had, depending on its size. Jian Chen completely ran out of jade boxes to store heavenly resources after picking the peaches, or more accurately, he had run out of jade boxes he had prepared. He would need to sort through his other space rings for more of them. As Jian Chen worried over the possibility of not enough boxes, the sword spirits suddenly informed him that the wood from the Xianhuang microcosm could be used to make boxes, which could also be used to store the heavenly resources. As a result, Jian Chen and Tai Ta worked together, collecting a large amount of wood nearby and sending it into the artifact space. Jian Chen got the elites of the Flame Mercenaries to make the boxes and also urged the artifact spirit to direct all the Class 7 magical beasts into human forms to create boxes as well. Chapter 1268, 5th Grade Comprehension T-Tree. Jian Chen no longer needed to worry about not having enough boxes now that there was such a large number of people and magical beasts creating them for him in the artifact space. 2 days later, Jian Chen came across an even larger region of life. It seemed more like a huge oasis, taking up several tens of thousand square kilometers. The vegetation was lush and grew vigorously as huge trees towered several hundred meters high. A mountain 1,000 meters tall stood at the center of the region. It was extraordinarily steep and slippery, making it extremely difficult to scale. However, an ancient tree, around a person's height, stood at the very top of it like an old man. It was not tall, but it was teeming with life, as if it would never decay away. "That's a comprehension tea tree." Jian Chen immediately cried out in joy as he stared at the tree at the very top. Although he was very far away, he could recognize it with his vision, and he felt something vastly different about it compared to the first-grade trees he had come across before. It was clearly of a higher grade. "That's a fifth-grade comprehension tea tree," said Ziying, having recognized it with a single glance. "And there's flame cloud fruit here." The effects of flame cloud fruit are the same as violet cloud peaches. They can directly increase the cultivation of a person, and they possess the effects of refining immortal energy. The only defect is that flame cloud fruit is only effective to those who practice fire-attributed cultivation methods. Although Master uses chaotic force and is not limited by the attributes in terms of power, the effects of the fruit will be greatly reduced for Master, Qing Suo said in pity. Jian Chen glanced over and indeed discovered a small tree covered in red halfway up the mountain. It was only 10 meters tall and covered in thumb-sized red fruit. "Is that the flame cloud fruit?" Jian Chen mumbled softly. He discovered that the red fruit shone with a red glow, as if there was a ball of flames flickering inside. These flame cloud fruit possess even great benefits for those who practice fire-attributed cultivation methods. Senior Hong Lian just happens to use fire-attributed energy, so these fruit should be very beneficial to her. Just a single one of them should be enough to elevate Senior Hong Lian to a Saint Emperor, Jian Chen thought. He immediately remembered Hong Lian when he learned the effects of the fruit. Jian Chen patted Tai Ta on his shoulder before moving. He had already charged off toward the mountain using the illusory flash while Tai Ta followed close behind him. He was no slower than Jian Chen. Jian Chen was extremely cautious along the way. Every single region of life possessed Xianhuang beasts, and the more valuable the item, the stronger the Xianhuang beasts would be. Since a fifth-grade comprehension tea tree had appeared here, the beast which guarded it would be extremely powerful as well. It was extremely likely that it would be the strongest Xianhuang beast he would face since he had come into this place. However, Jian Chen was surprised by the fact that he did not come across a single Xianhuang beast when he made it to the foot of the mountain. He did not even sense the presence of a Xianhuang beast. Jian Chen and Tai Ta looked at each other. They were rather stern. This situation only meant that the Xianhuang beast's strength had completely exceeded the two of them. Once it hid itself, it would be extremely difficult to find. "Jian Chen, this might be a Saint Emperor Xianhuang beast," Tai Ta said with his heavy, deep voice. He was extremely stern, but he did not show any fear at all. Jian Chen gave a deep nod in agreement. Xianhuang beasts do not have intelligence. They completely rely on their instincts to fight. Even if it's a Saint Emperor Xianhuang beast, it will be nowhere near as powerful as a Saint Emperor in all aspects other than its toughness. It will not know any Saint Emperor abilities either, so we still can kill it. With that, Jian Chen began to climb the mountain. The steepness of the rocks did not trouble Jian Chen. As if it was any flat ground, he easily made his way up, and Tai Ta followed close behind him. If it were not for the fact that flight was restricted in this world, reaching the top would have been even easier. Before long, Jian Chen and Tai Ta arrived at the peak, but their expressions suddenly changed in the next moment. Chapter 1269, Class 9 Xianhuang Beast. Before, when the two of them were below the mountain, their vision had been obscured, so they could not see the top of the mountain from afar. Now that they had scaled the mountain, everything was clear to them. The peak of the mountain took up a very large expanse of space. It was craggy and filled with ditches, especially in the center. There was a 20-meter deep ditch that was over 1,000 meters wide, and in the center of it lay two extremely large Xianhuang beasts. The two of them were larger than any Xianhuang beast Jian Chen had ever seen. He had come across many Class 7 and 8 Xianhuang beasts in the past, but all of them were several dozen meters long at most. Yet, the two alligator-like Xianhuang beasts in front of him were 1,000 meters long. Even though they lay on the floor, they were 30 meters tall and wide. From afar, they looked like huge bridges. Jian Chen could not sense the presence of the two Xianhuang beasts at all. This was not because they knew how to hide it, but this was a natural phenomena that would occur once their strength reached a certain level. To be able to do that, the two beasts clearly were much more powerful than Jian Chen and Tai Ta. Two Class 9 Xianhuang beasts. Jian Chen's heart sank slightly. Even though he had expected the beast that guarded a 5th-grade comprehension T-tree to have reached the level of Saint Emperor, he definitely did not think that there would be two of them. If there was just a single one, he and Tai Ta could still confidently deal with it if they worked together, but it would be a whole different story if there were two. The moment Jian Chen and Tai Ta made it to the top, the two alligator-like Xianhuang beasts opened their eyes at the same time. Four large, orange-yellow eyes landed on the two of them. They were bright and filled with a violent thirst for blood. Jian Chen and Tai Ta immediately felt that they had been locked on by a vast presence, as if a huge mountain sat on top of them. They felt their bodies increase in weight as their movements became dulled as well. "Let's go!" Without any hesitation, Jian Chen immediately cried out and leaped off the mountain with Tai Ta. They quickly floated into the distance. Although the mountain peak was spacious, it was not suitable for battle. In order to prevent the ripples of battle from reaching the comprehension T-tree, Jian Chen and Tai Ta could only draw the two Class 9 Xianhuang beasts away. Almost the moment they had leaped off, the two alligator produced weird ear-piercing cries. They stood up at that moment and became 50 meters tall. They were like mountains. The entire mountain suddenly shook violently while the two alligators followed Jian Chen and Tai Ta, jumping off in pursuit. This region was their territory, so they clearly would not let the two ant-like existences that had intruded escape. Although the two alligators were huge, they were also nimble. They were extremely quick as well, actually quite a bit faster than Jian Chen and Tai Ta. In the blink of an eye, they had caught up to them by quite a bit. Sensing that the alligators were getting closer and closer, Jian Chen immediately used his illusory flash and his speed abruptly exploded. He tore away from the alligator once more with a long streak of afterimages behind him. Mysteries of War, Celestial Movement. At the same time, Tai Ta used his Mysteries of War. He suddenly vanished before reappearing several kilometers away in the next moment. Like teleportation, his figure flickered, and he managed to travel over 20 kilometers away from the alligator. He was much faster than Jian Chen. At this moment, Jian Chen and Tai Ta had already drawn the two alligators several dozen kilometers away. Afterward, they stopped, as if they understood each other tacitly, and quietly waited for the two beasts to reach them. Jian Chen and Tai Ta did not stand together, but over 10 kilometers away. The two Xianhuang beasts split up as well, each charging toward one target. Clearly, one of the Xianhuang beasts was female while the other was male, but their strength was the same. Suddenly, a bright golden light began to flicker. Tai Ta had drawn his golden axe as he stood there in an awe-inspiring manner. He bathed in the golden light, erect like a war god as powerful battle intent revolved around him. He gave off a feeling that made him seem like he was invincible. Jian Chen also stood with his emperor armament. He stood dead straight as a powerful sword intent radiated from him, surging straight into the sky. He seemed to have become a sword that hovered in the surroundings. Jian Chen dared not to show any carelessness against two Class 9 Xianhuang beasts. He was already ready to use everything he had. At that moment, his consciousness completely fused with his sword intent, as if he had combined with the emperor armament in his hand. Suddenly, he seemed to sense something, but he was unable to grasp it no matter what. It felt like it was concealed by layers of mist, making it hazy and extremely blurry. This is the way of the sword. Jian Chen's heart twitched. He could feel once again that he had touched the first realm of the way of the sword, but to his disappointment, he had never been able to grasp it, perhaps due to the fact that he did not have his fated sword. He always felt like he was lacking something. Jian Chen did not have the time to comprehend the mysteries of the way of the sword in detail. The Class 9 Xianhuang beast had already arrived before him. It opened its mouth and bit at Jian Chen. At the same time, a powerful suction force emerged from its mouth, attempting to suck Jian Chen in. Jian Chen immediately felt his movements slow down in an abnormal way now because of the suction force. However, he was not flustered at all. Chaotic force surged out of him and wrapped around him to resist the suction force. He used the illusory flash to avoid the alligator's mouth and stabbed out as hard as he could at the alligator's head along the way. Ding! With a crisp sound, like the collision of metal, Jian Chen's full-powered attack failed to harm the alligator at all. He even failed to break through the alligator's skin, only leaving behind a faint, white mark. What a tough body. Looks like I can only attack its weakest point, Jian Chen was secretly shocked. The Class 9 Xianhuang beast's flesh had reached an unbelievable level of toughness. His full-powered attack, equal to a Saint King at 7th heavenly layer, could not harm it at all. By the looks of things, probably even a Saint King at great perfection using all his strength could not break through the alligator's skin. Chapter 1270, Scarlet Gold Ore, 1. At the same time, the huge, golden axe in Tai Ta's hand landed on his Class 9 Xianhuang beast. The outcome was the same as Jian Chen's. His powerful strike failed to harm the Xianhuang beast at all, not even puncturing its skin. All that was left was a faint mark. Tai Ta immediately frowned at this. The toughness of the Xianhuang beast had also exceeded his imaginations, but he did not become dejected at all. He now gripped the axe with two hands as he lifted it high above his head. It shone with a bright golden light as a powerful battle intent coiled around him, fusing with the axe head. Mysteries of War, Mortality Breaker. Tai Ta called out as the axe was swung down covered in a coating of golden light. This time, Tai Ta used the mysteries of war, so it was far more powerful than his attack earlier. Boom! The golden axe landed on the Xianhuang beast and actually produced a heavy boom. Violent streams of energy shot out in all directions as storms of energy, kicking dust and stones into the air. The dust obscured most of Tai Ta and the Xianhuang beast. Tai Ta's strength had increased a lot after he had cultivated for 3 months in the whirlpool of energy. He was far more powerful than he had been in the battle against the Tao family. The power of his mysteries of war had even reached the 8th heavenly layer of Saint King, now even stronger than Jian Chen. However, his attack still failed to break through the Xianhuang beast's skin, only leaving behind a white mark that was slightly bigger than before. Roar! The Xianhuang beast was angered and produced a deafening roar. It raised one of its limbs and pressed it against Tai Ta. It clearly could not allow such an insignificant, ant-like existence to attack it time and time again. Although it did not possess any intelligence, it felt supremacy due to its strength, unable to tolerate contact from those weaker than it. Due to being overly large, the Xianhuang beast's limb was extremely huge as well. It was 20 to 30 meters wide, larger than a regular house. The Xianhuang beast quickly slammed down its foot. Like a huge stamp descending from the sky, it engulfed an entire region. Tai Ta immediately felt a vast pressure appear beneath him since he was below the foot. Although the Class 9 Xianhuang beast did not know any special abilities, it was still a powerful existence on par with Saint Emperors after all. Just any old attack from it possessed an extremely large amount of force, and the pressure created could trap any prey that was weaker than it. Tai Ta felt his body become heavier and heavier. His feet had already sunk into the ground and continued to sink. The Xianhuang beast's huge foot rapidly came crashing down from above him. With every inch it fell, the pressure Tai Ta felt became greater. Mysteries of war, celestial movement. Tai Ta cried out before using a mystery of war again. Bathing in golden light, he suddenly vanished with a flash and reappeared on the back of the Xianhuang beast like he had teleported. Mysteries of war, destruction. Tai Ta roared out and was covered by golden light. Supreme battle intent permeated his surroundings once again. It combined with his axe as invisible energy and strengthened it. A destructive energy erupted from the axe that seemed like it could destroy everything in the surroundings. Just from the presence, destruction was far more powerful than Mortality Breaker. One of them was just a simple but powerful attack, while the other possessed an aura of destruction. It could annihilate anything. When the golden axe struck the back of the Xianhuang beast with its destructive aura, it actually left behind a thin, 2-meter-long gash. Tai Ta's destruction could actually puncture the skin of the Xianhuang beast. Although the wound was only an inch deep, not even a tenth of the beast's hide, it was still shocking. The Xianhuang beast violently shook in an attempt to throw Tai Ta off its back. Tai Ta held onto a protrusion on its back, securing himself firmly to the beast's back. He swung his axe with one hand and continued to use destruction on the 2-meter-long gash, causing it to rapidly widen. Once he got through the thick hide of the Xianhuang beast, he would be able to harm it. The Xianhuang beast immediately began to growl angrily and stomp the ground when it saw how it could not shake off the insignificant existence on its back. It created huge ditches one after another in the tough soul as it used its thick and powerful tail to whip at Tai Ta. However, Tai Ta would avoid it using his celestial movement before returning to the same spot to continue deepening the wound. 1 swing. 2 swings. 3 swings. The force of destruction was greatly reduced since he was using it with one hand, but the Xianhuang beast could not endure his consecutive attacks. The gash became deeper and deeper on its back, but there was still no blood. The Xianhuang beast's hide was extremely thick. Tai Ta had not even cut through half of it. Tai Ta was like a piece of gum stuck to the beast's back, unable to be removed no matter what. Although the beast posed no harm to Tai Ta for now, it was still very difficult for him to slay the beast since he had yet to even get through its hide. On the other side, Jian Chen used the illusory flash to avoid the attacks of the beast. After a period of weaving and dodging, Jian Chen had completely grasped the way the beast attacked. It did not use any tricks and only used the most primitive methods of attack as a beast. Although it possessed the great strength of a Saint Emperor, it was not even as threatening as a 9th heavenly layer Saint King besides its thick skin. Jian Chen hid himself from the beast's vision. With his presence fully erased, he silently made his way below the beast and stabbed as hard as he could at its snow-white belly. However, the attack failed to harm the Xianhuang beast at all. Jian Chen felt his sword strike something soft, preventing him from using any force. The belly was the weakest point of many magical beasts, and it was a crucial region that was directly connected to its various organs. Unfortunately, even this weak point of many magical beasts had been greatly strengthened on this Xianhuang beast. Looks like I can only attack its eyes, mouth, ears, and nostrils, Jian Chen sighed inside. In all his years of fighting, this was a battle he felt most helpless about. It was not because his opponent was far too powerful but because their hide was just too thick. Jian Chen emerged from beneath the Xianhuang beast with a flash, standing right in front of the beast's head without hiding himself at all. He swung his emperor armament at the ground and immediately, a black, crescent sword chi vanished into the soil. It moved through the ground, heading quickly toward the Xianhuang beast. Soil was kicked into the air wherever the sword chi passed, launching large swathes of sand and dust into the air. The sky became a hazy mess. Both Jian Chen and the Xianhuang beast had their vision obscured in such circumstances, unable to see each other at all. Jian Chen closed his eyes and charged into the cloud of dust. At this moment, he no longer bothered with the fact that his soul would be consumed at an extremely rapid rate. He expanded the senses of his soul to 1,000 meters and used it to observe his surroundings as he rapidly approached the beast. At the same time, he carefully erased his presence to prevent the Xianhuang beast from discovering where he was. Jian Chen arrived 20 meters away from the Xianhuang beast's head very quickly. Suddenly, his speed exploded, and he traversed the distance with the illusory flash, arriving before the beast's eye. He radiated with a powerful sword intent as the Emperor armament shone with a black streak of light that was several meters long. The violent and destructive presence entered the Xianhuang beast's eye, causing it to feel a piercing pain. Before the beast could close its eyes, the Emperor armament had transformed into an obscure streak of black light as it stabbed into one of the Xianhuang beast's eye that was half a man wide. The chaotic force hidden within the weapon wildly erupted, blinding the Xianhuang beast's eye at that moment. The residual energy used the eye as an entry and spread toward the brain of the Xianhuang beast in an attempt to destroy its central nervous system. The Xianhuang beast produced a painful cry as it writhed on the ground, kicking up even more dust and sand. It became so obscured that it was impossible for Jian Chen to see right in front of him. Jian Chen originally planned on using this opportunity to blind the beast's other eye as well, but seeing how it writhed in an unpredictable manner, all he could do was give up with no other choice and retreat. Not only did the Xianhuang beast's pain come from its blinded eye, it was also caused by the small amount of chaotic force Jian Chen had deposited. Wherever the energy went, the surrounding blood and flesh would vanish. The chaotic force quickly made its way toward the beast's head. The Xianhuang beast also seemed to be able to sense the threat traveling toward its brain. Energy immediately surged out like water from a broken dam, quickly reaching its head. Afterward, it surrounded the small amount of chaotic force and slowly nullified it. Jian Chen could sense the chaotic force vanish. He thought, the Xianhuang beast has grown up in the Xianhuang microcosm, so it must have absorbed some Xianhuang qi. Xianhuang qi is a powerful energy on par with chaotic force, so it possesses enough power to repel it. The threat of my chaotic force toward the beast has been greatly reduced. Greater effects will only appear when I use it on beasts that are weaker than me. My chaotic force will be wiped out before it can reach the beast's central nervous system. Looks like with my current strength, it's very difficult for me to slay Class 9 Xianhuang beasts even when using its weak points to my advantage. Jian Chen emotionlessly stared at the writhing Xianhuang beast in front of him. The light in his eyes flickered, but as if he had thought of something, a firmer gleam of light flashed through his eyes. The next moment, the saint artifact flew out from the center of his eyebrows and with a wave of his hand, he removed something from the artifact space. At that moment, an extremely terrifying ripple of energy pervaded the surroundings. The energy ripple was so powerful that even the two Class 9 Xianhuang beasts paused. Chapter 1271, Scarlet Gold Ore, 2, a pinky-sized ball of pure energy hovered in Jian Chen's hand. It was the strand of Emperor's power he had obtained from Thisnik back in the Octaterra Divine Hall. It had personally been left in Thisnika's body by the Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall. Jian Chen had stored the power in the artifact space since he had obtained it. The artifact spirit had personally watched over it. Jian Chen had only taken it out to use it once against Kaiser. After so much time, he had almost forgotten about it, and only now did he remember it. All energies besides Jian Chen's chaotic force and Tai Ta's powers suffered restrictions in the Xianhuang microcosm. As soon as it appeared, the strand of Emperor's power quickly began to dissipate. Jian Chen knew that he could not leave the Emperor's power out for too long. He looked at the region of dust caused by the writhing alligator and charged in without any hesitation. Using the senses of his soul to observe the surroundings, he immediately headed toward the alligator's head. The alligator seemed to sense that Jian Chen now possessed a power great enough to threaten it. It temporarily forgot about the excruciating pain of its eye and began to slowly retreat. At the same time, a clear crack rang through the air as its thick and agile tail quickly whipped toward Jian Chen. Jian Chen's senses had locked onto the tail's trajectory, allowing him to agilely dodge it. With a flash, he arrived in front of the alligator's head and struck it with the strand of Emperor's power as quickly as he could. In order to prevent the power from being wasted, Jianchen attached a sliver of his soul to the power, so that he could control it in crucial moments. The Emperor power shot out extremely quick, targeting the blinded eye of the alligator. The beast wanted to flee, but it was unable to dodge the incoming power due to it being too slow. In the end, the valuable strand of energy struck the eye of the beast with utmost precision. Boom! With a heavy sound, the Emperor's power exploded in the beast's head. The great force caused its head to jolt as bright red and white substances sprayed out from its ears, mouth, nostrils, and eyes. If the Emperor's power had struck the body of the beast, it probably would only have left behind some shallow wounds, just like what had happened to Kaiser. However, since it hit the alligator's weakest point, its head exploded and it suffered fatal damage. Even with its tough body, it could not endure it. The beast's body froze. One of its eyes had been destroyed by the explosion of energy and its huge body seemed to have become powerless, collapsing on the ground, dead. Jianchen exhaled as he stood beside the alligator's corpse. He had finally slain a Class 9 Xianhuang beast, but Jianchen understood extremely well that if it were not for the Emperor's power, it would have been extremely difficult to kill it even if he ended up blinding both its eyes. At this moment, a great roar sounded out from afar. Seeing how its companion had died, the alligator fighting Tai Ta immediately charged at Jianchen with reddened eyes. It did not even pay any attention to Tai Ta on its back. At this moment, Tai Ta managed to get through its hide as well. He immediately hacked his axe at the flesh of the beast. Although its body was very tough, it was nowhere near as strong as its hide. Blood sprayed all over Tai Ta as soon as the axe struck the wound. However, Tai Ta's attack on the wound was no different than scratching an itch to the beast with its 1,000-meter-long body. Tai Ta did not become dejected at all. He had finally broken through the Xianhuang beast's hide after much difficulty. He immediately used the wound to his advantage as his axe shone with a golden glow. He hacked at the wound time and time again, without showing any exhaustion. Jianchen was the only person present in the beast's eyes right now. It completely ignored Tai Ta, who was constantly hacking away at it on its back, as his attacks were no different from a mosquito's sting. The Xianhuang beast quickly ran toward Jianchen as a vast presence radiated from it unknowingly. It locked onto Jianchen, making him face a mountainous pressure. Jianchen stood where he was, unmoving. He stared at the alligator sternly as he pondered how exactly he should deal with it. He was without the Emperor's power now, so the method he had used to deal with the first one would not work. Even if he stabbed its eye and injected chaotic force, it would not achieve the expected outcome. This was because chaotic force became very weak against Xianhuang beasts. Xianhuang beasts possessed Xianhuang qi inside. Even if it was not particularly pure and extremely thin, it was still an energy that stood on equal level with chaotic force. The Xianhuang beast quickly arrived before Jianchen and opened its gaping mouth to bite him. The 2 rows of sharp teeth shone with an icy cold light. Just looking at them was enough to cause people to shiver. Seeing how the Xianhuang beast wanted to eat him, a gleam of light flashed through Jianchen's eyes. This time, he did not dodge. Instead, he shot into the alligator's mouth, like an arrow, before it could bite him, carefully avoiding its sharp teeth. Before the tongue could get to him, he slid down the Xianhuang beast's gullet and entered its stomach. It was pitch black in the stomach. Jianchen used his soul to sense the surroundings, understanding the environment he was in. He was covered in stomach acid, which made him feel a burning pain even with his body. However, his 3rd-layer chaotic body was enough to resist the corrosion. Jianchen did not hesitate as soon as he made it into the stomach. He wielded the Emperor armament and swung it at the surroundings, using all he had to destroy the Xianhuang beast from inside out. This time, the Class 9 Xianhuang beast could not just endure the attacks. It was in excruciating pain from the great wounds, which caused it to constantly wail out. Its body writhed violently as well, almost rolling over Tai Ta, who was on its back. Jian Chen's emperor armament shone brightly. With a single stroke, he could destroy all the organs within a range of 4 meters. He advanced through the Xianhuang beast's body, approaching its head. He would chop through all the walls of flesh that blocked his path. But at this moment, Jian Chen felt an invisible force wrap around him. Just when he was about to react, he was bound by the power. It was extremely powerful, such that Jian Chen could not even struggle for the time being. He felt his vision brighten as he was vomited out by the alligator. After learning from what had happened earlier, the Xianhuang beast clearly was not bold enough to open its mouth again. After spitting out Jian Chen, it kept its mouth tightly. Jian Chen quickly stabilized himself and used the same trick as before. With a sword qi thrown at the ground, large swathes of dust were kicked into the air, which blocked the Xianhuang beast's vision. He erased his presence as he silently made his way in front of the Xianhuang beast, stabbing one of its eyes with lightning-like speed. The Xianhuang beast could not help but wail from the pain. It opened its mouth, and Jian Chen used the opportunity to enter the beast's body again. Without stopping at all, he continued to use the Emperor armament to carve out a path by removing all the obstacles in his way, quickly approaching the beast's brain. At this moment, Jian Chen could feel the invisible force wrap around him once again. He had already arrived in the head of the beast, so he shot a sword qi ahead of him without any second thought, targeting central nervous system. Immediately, a small portion of the beast's central nervous system was destroyed by Jian Chen's sword qi. Although it did not die, it suffered fatal damage. Painfully tearing at the sky, it swayed and almost collapsed on the ground. It had lost control over the force it had condensed in its head to deal with Jian Chen, causing it to disperse. Jian Chen knew this was a rare opportunity, so he abruptly increased his speed. He arrived before the central nervous system as fast as he could and quickly swung out with his Emperor armament. He created a densely packed net of attacks from this stroke, completely and utterly destroying the beast's central nervous system. Boom! With its destruction, the Xianhuang beast could not resist death no matter how vigorous its life force was. It finally collapsed on the group heavily. Sensing the life drain away from the Xianhuang beast, Tai Ta stopped his pointless hacking. He stared at the huge corpse on the ground and was clearly stunned. He then leaped off its body. He chuckled, Jian Chen still the powerful one. Just when I got through its hide, you already killed it. Spurt. The Xianhuang beast's eye suddenly exploded, and Jian Chen charged out of the socket, covered in various liquids and appearing to be in a horrible shape. He threw the bloody energy crystal in his hand at Tai Ta and said, Tai Ta, that's yours. It's equivalent to a Class 9 monster core, so it should be able to increase your strength by quite a bit. Tai Ta caught the thumb-sized crystal and seriously replied, Jian Chen, you killed both of these Xianhuang beasts, so this should belong to you. I don't want it. With that, he was about to throw the crystal back at Jian Chen. Jian Chen raised his hand to stop Tai Ta. He said, the Xianhuang beasts will be coming across will become stronger and stronger. There will definitely be even more Class 9 Xianhuang beasts waiting for us later on, and possibly even those that have surpassed Class 9, ones that have surpassed Saint Emperor. We won't be able to get very far with just our current strength, so we need to become stronger as fast as possible. Only when we are stronger can we slay more Class 9 Xianhuang beasts. Jian Chen made up his mind then and there. After he collected the 5th grade comprehension tea leaves and the flame cloud fruit, he would immediately enter seclusion to break through to the 4th layer. He did not mind even if it did take up some of the precious remaining time. He understood that there would be even more valuable heavenly resources of higher grades later on and that probably all of the beasts that guarded them would be Class 9 or peak existences among Class 9. With just his current strength, he could not make it far at all. Only by increasing his strength could he travel further and collect even more things. Tai Ta found what Jian Chen had said to be reasonable. He did not continue to insist after realizing that, accepting the Class 9 energy crystal. Afterward, Jian Chen removed an energy crystal of similar size from the other Xianhuang beast and stored it in his space ring. He also moved the 2 corpses into the artifact before using some first-grade spring water to wash his body. He changed into a new set of clothes before returning to the region where the 2 Class 9 Xianhuang beasts had lived. Scarlet gold ore, that scarlet gold Oregon Master, we found another material for forging the azulate swords. Before Jian Chen could collect the tea leaves, the azulate sword spirits called out in joy right when he made it to the top of the mountain. Jian Chen glanced over. In the pit where the 2 alligators had dwelled stood a golden piece of rock half a man tall, glistening like gold. Jian Chen beamed in joy. He immediately ignored the comprehension tea tree and ran toward the rock. Although the tea leaves were valuable, they were not more valuable than a material to forge the azulate swords in Jian Chen's eyes. This was because he yearned for a sword that truly suited him from the bottom of his heart. At the same time, he needed to have a fated sword to comprehend the 5 realms of the way of the sword, when he would truly begin his cultivation of the sword. Chapter 1272, Secluded Cultivation. Jian Chen stored the scarlet gold ore away in his space ring like it was a supreme treasure before sucking in a deep breath, slowly calming himself down. He was getting closer and closer to the day he could forge the swords. All he lacked now was the Yin-Hell stone, which was among the most valuable materials to forge the swords. Afterward, Jian Chen made his way to the comprehension tree. The tree was the same size as the ones he had come across before, but each leaf possessed an even heavier presence of ways. This 5th grade of the immortal tier comprehension tea tree was more valuable than the 3 first-grade trees he had come across before. Jian Chen pulled out a crude wooden box from the artifact space before carefully snapping off 2 twigs from the tree. He used them as chopsticks as began to collect every single leaf. After collecting all 81 tea leaves, Jian Chen arrived by the cliff. He carefully made his way down along the slippery cliff face before finally arriving beside the flame cloud fruit tree. He pulled out another wooden box from the artifact space, slightly bigger than the one before, and began collecting the fruit. Each flame cloud fruit was completely red and the size of a thumb. They were the smallest heavenly resources Jian Chen had come across so far. Although they were extremely small, the amount of energy hidden inside could not be underestimated. As soon as he touched one of them, he could clearly feel the energetic fire-attributed energy within. It was extremely pure and vast. Even 100,000-year heavenly resource would not be able to match up to a single one of them. There was a total of 99 flame cloud fruits and Jian Chen picked every single one of them. He then made his way to the Spring of Life which supported the entire region. The Spring of Life was also the largest one he had come across since he had arrived in the Xianhuang microcosm. He saw was a 30-meter-wide lake, filled with green spring water. It radiated with a vast presence of life. This is a 5th-grade Spring of Life. Ziying recognized the quality of the spring water with a single glance and immediately informed Jian Chen. Jian Chen beamed inside with that. The highest grade of spring water in his artifact space was only of the 3rd. Not only was the water right before him of the 5th grade, there was so much of it as well. He ravished in joy. Jian Chen did not hesitate at all, immediately pulling out a container to collect the water. In the end, he collected half of all the water just like before and found a head-sized ball of essence in the center. It was also of the 5th grade. Afterward, Jian Chen looked around the top of the mountain before leaving after not finding anything else. He then looked around the area around the mountain, searching the entire place. He found over 10 heavenly resources that were also of the immortal tier with the sword spirit's help. It's time for me to increase my strength. I can finally reach the 4th layer of the chaotic body. Jian Chen brought his hands together as he mumbled to himself. Afterward, he let out the saint artifact, and after calling to Tai Ta, they entered the artifact space together. The Saint artifact did not stay revealed outside either. It turned into a golden streak of light as it burrowed into the soil and hid itself deep underground to prevent any sudden encounters with Class 9 Xianhuang beasts. After all, the Saint artifact could only resist attacks from Saint Kings with its defense. Class 9 Xianhuang beasts possessed enough strength to smash it into pieces. Jian Chen threw some immortal tier heavenly resources to the white tiger for it to devour in the artifact space, causing it to enter another slumber, which had not occurred for quite some time. After that, he and Tai Ta chose places to enter seclusion. Jian Chen tidied his cultivation resources in a cold and gloomy room. The resources he had to reach the fourth layer were the violet cloud peaches that were equivalent to 2 Class 9 monster cores, 1 energy crystal from a Class 9 Xianhuang beast, 3 of the 5 Class 9 monster cores he had obtained from the Heaven's Incense School, and many more Class 7 and 8 monster cores. I require a 3rd grade violet cloud peach to reach the 4th layer of the chaotic body. I don't have it, but I do have a few at the 1st grade. It's just enough combined with the 4 Class 9 monster cores I have on me. However, the violet cloud peach can only be consumed once every century, so if I eat it now, I have to wait 100 years before I can eat a second one. I might end up coming across violet cloud peaches of higher grades within the next few days, so I can't just waste this opportunity that arises once every 100 years. Whatever, I won't eat the violet cloud peach this time. I'll use the Class 7 and 8 monster cores to replace it, Jian Chen thought before pulling out all his high-class monster cores and the Class 7 and 8 energy crystals he had obtained from killing Xianhuang beasts. He placed them all on the ground and began to cultivate. Jian Chen first began to absorb the energy crystals he had obtained from the Xianhuang beasts. He discovered that they were far greater than monster cores of the same class. Not only was the energy inside them much purer, they also lacked the violent factor that was in the energy of monster cores, which made absorption even easier. On the Tianyuan continent, no one dared to easily absorb the energy of monster cores to cultivate, mainly because of the violent factor hidden within both low and high-class monster cores. Not only would it wreak havoc on the body if it managed to hide itself, it would also bring great problems to one's cultivation in the future, which might even result in death by implosion if they were severe. As a result, all the people of the Tianyuan continent needed to consolidate their strength after absorbing a certain amount of energy from the monster cores as well as purge the violent factors within them. This process would take quite some time. The reason why Jian Chen could ignore this violent factor in monster cores was all because of the azulate sword spirits. They allowed Jian Chen to absorb the energy without any worry whatsoever. Yet, the energy crystals from the Xianhuang beasts lacked this violence that monster cores had, so even if the people of the Tianyuan continent continuously absorbed the energy, it would not leave any future problems. Jian Chen immediately rejoiced after understanding this. He thought of his friends and family. All he needed was to bring back plenty of these energy crystals, and they could rapidly strengthen themselves. Once I break through to the 4th layer, I'll definitely hunt more Xianhuang beasts and collect even more energy crystals, Jian Chen secretly made up his mind. When he had entered the Xianhuang microcosm before, he had originally planned to leave immediately after he had collected the materials for the sea goddess. But now that he discovered the benefits of the Xianhuang microcosm, he was tempted to stay in there for a few years or possibly never leave. Other than this, Jian Chen could sense extremely thin traces of Xianhuang qi within the energy crystals. However, he could not absorb the energy at all. All he could do was let it dissipate in the air, as even the sword spirits could do nothing about it. Master, there's no point in trying to absorb the Xianhuang qi. Qing Sua and I have existed for countless years and we've never heard of someone who can absorb it. Although it's on the same level as the chaotic force, no one can control it in all of history. There are a few practitioners of the chaotic body in the immortals world, but they are all the same as Master, where they cultivate their chaotic body after birth. Innate chaotic bodies are even rarer. Several hundreds of thousands or even millions of years can pass without the birth of a single innate chaotic body, said Ziying. Chapter 1273, How Use Might. 1. Jian Chen could only give up on the thought of absorbing Xianhuang Qi with the sword spirit's explanation and, thus, began to focus on cultivation. 100,000 kilometers away from the Jessen kingdom stood a city completely constructed out of a valuable tungsten alloy. The city was not one of the 7 capital cities, but it was great enough to stand on equal ground with them on the Tianyuan continent. From certain aspects, the city was countless times more valuable than any single capital of the continent. This was because the city walls were completely created from tungsten alloy. Tungsten alloy was an extremely valuable metal on the continent. It was extremely tough and was equivalent to 10 times its weight in purple coins. Probably no one could calculate just how much of the metal went into building the city, so just the city walls had reached an astonishing price. When it was first being built, many large organizations on the continent had indeed cast their greedy eyes upon such a valuable city and even interested a few ancient clans. However, since the owner of the city was just far too reputed, all of them gave up on the thought of taking the city for themselves in the end. The city was Flame City, which belonged to the Flame Mercenaries. As the people who possessed the most authority and were responsible for every single matter in the mercenaries, Bai Lian and Yu Yu currently conversed casually in the luxurious city lord's estate standing in the center of the city like an imperial palace. They would laugh pleasantly from time to time. In order to prevent the escaped Saint Kings of the Underworld sect from taking revenge on the Flame Mercenaries, Yu Yu watched over the city with the Bright Moon Divine Hall. The silver-white Divine Hall had shrunk to the size of a regular palace and stood silently in the city lord's estate. Contained inside it was Fairy Hao Yu's soul. She would discover any Saint King who entered the estate as soon as they set foot in it. Originally, Fairy Hao Yu would have never watched over a mercenary group that had nothing to do with her because of her status and her pride, but she only ended up agreeing after considering the fact that the request originated from Jian Chen and that she would need his help in the future. Hence, she would temporarily watch over the city. The Divine Hall was very eye-catching in between the estate's dark bricks and red tiles. Even during the day, the clear moonlight from the Divine Hall could still be seen. 1,000 meters around the Divine Hall had also become a forbidden zone, where both the patrolling guards and the upper echelon of the mercenaries could not set foot. At this moment, the space above Flame City violently began to distort. A while later, a space gate quickly formed and many Saint Kings emerged from it. They stared at the city beneath them. They were the 9 Saint Kings that had hurried over from Mercenary City. They were led by 4 Saint Kings from the Yuan sect and Yangji sect, while the 5 independent Saint Kings followed along to borrow the Divine Hall. As soon as the 9 Saint Kings arrived above the city, their vast presences surged out of them, engulfing the entire city. A few weaker mercenaries immediately vomited blood from the presences and instantly paled. At that moment, the orderly city turned into a huge mess from the presences of the 9 Saint Kings. The streets became strewn with people. Although they were not dead, all of them had become heavily injured from the vast presences. Their organs had all ruptured while a few structures in the city had collapsed. Bai Hai hurriedly flew from the city lord's estate with the other saint rulers of the Flame Mercenaries. They became extremely stern when they saw the 9 Saint Kings hovering in the air. Bai Lian stood as well while talking to Yu Yu. She looked outside and asked in a heavy voice, "What's happening?" Yu Yu grabbed her arm and comforted her, "Sister Bai Lian, don't worry. I'll support you with everything." "Yep. Yu Yu, have a look. People who can give off such great presences are probably Saint Kings. I'm afraid that great-grandfather Bai Hai and the others will be in danger," Bai Lian said in a rather flustered manner. She worried for Bai Hai's safety very much. Yu Yu nodded and walked outside as she pulled Bai Lian with her. She had the Bright Moon Divine Hall as a safety measure, so she did not show any fear even when she faced Saint Kings. Fairy How You sensed the 9 Saint Kings the moment they had reached the city, but she did not do anything. She remained in the divine hall and secretly observed the situation outside. Bai Hai flew into the air with the other saint rulers and stopped at the same altitude as the 9 Saint Kings. He clasped his hands at them and asked in an extremely hostile manner, "May I ask who you are and why you have come to my flame mercenaries to make trouble? Do you think that there are no Saint Kings in the city?" The gazes of the 9 Saint Kings grew cold with what Bai Hai had said, but the 4 Saint Kings from the Protector clans said nothing. They understood the flame mercenaries extremely well. Although it was not powerful overall, they possessed a captain who even Protector clans did not dare to offend. They could put the saint rulers in their place, but they dared not to harm them easily. Not to mention, the person right before them was Jian Chen's great-grandfather. They could not guarantee that Jian Chen would not go to their Protector clans and cause trouble with the 3 magical beasts in his wrath if they touched him. However, just because the Saint Kings from the Yuan and Yangji sects dared not to touch Bai Hai did not mean that the 5 other independent Saint Kings would not do the same. They did not understand the flame mercenaries, so with their prideful nature, they were very displeased by how a mere saint ruler had not only failed to greet them politely and had even questioned them in hostility. Immediately, a short, 4th heavenly layer old man took a step and immediately used his presence to press onto Bai Hai. He sneered, "So what if you have Saint Kings? You're just a mere saint ruler and you dare to speak so rudely to the 9 of us? I can kill you, and even if you have a Saint King present, they'll need to apologize to the 9 of us." With that, the short old man hurled his palm at Bai Hai. He had used his abilities as a Saint King with his palm strike. With a surge of energy, the space in front froze and forcibly immobilized Bai Hai. However, what he failed to notice was that Bai Hai was clenching a rock in his right hand when he had arrived. The rock was one of the 3 flaming jadeites the president of the Radiant Saint Master Union had gifted Jian Chen, and it had already been fully charged with energy by Rui Jin. It could deal an attack from a Saint King at great perfection. Bai Hai knew that the people had not come with good intentions and that there were 9 Saint Kings in total, so he had secretly prepared a flaming jadeite in his hand just in case. The moment the short old man attacked Bai Hai used a silver of saint force within him to activate the rock. Immediately, an extremely violent ripple of energy emerged from the flaming jadeite, instantaneously breaking through the frozen space. Bai Hai regained his freedom, so with a wave of his hand, he threw the flaming jadeite. Chapter 1274, How Use Might, 2, The flaming jadeite shone with a piercing light as it shot toward the short old man with an extremely great energy. Wherever it passed, the surrounding space shook violently, forming pitch-black cracks from the terrifying amount of energy spewing from the rock. The short old man paled in fright. He shivered because of how powerful the energy from the stone was. It was equivalent to a strike from a Saint King at great perfection, so how could it be possible for him to resist it with his strength as a 4th heavenly layer Saint King? Even if he did manage to resist it, he would end up heavily injured. What is this? Has a Saint King at great perfection deposited a sliver of his power in this saint ruler? Impossible, a Saint King's power stored in another person's body would never produce such a terrifying disturbance. The short old man was no longer able to remain as composed as before. He abruptly shot back and pleaded for help from the 8 other Saint Kings in worry. "Everyone, let's block this attack together, or all of us will be in for more than what we bargained for." The other 8 Saint Kings became stern as well. None of them had thought that Bai Hai would possess such a great item, where it could erupt suddenly and produce such a great strike. Any single one of them would become heavily injured if they took on the strike all by themselves. Before the short old man had even asked for help, the 8 Saint Kings already planned on working together and blocking the strike of the flaming jadeite because the short old man stood right in front of them. The rock shot toward the short old man as well as them, so trying to remain uninvolved in this matter was impossible. Vast amounts of energy surged from the 8 Saint Kings. The 9 of them all produced a palm strike that was sent at the flaming jadeite at the same time. The energies collided with the rock as it shook up the surrounding space. Boom! With a deafening explosion, it seemed like brilliant fireworks had been set off above the city from how dazzling it was. Violent energy ripples rocked the surroundings and surged out. A portion of the energy traveled toward Flame City. Bai Hai and the Saint Rulers' expressions all drastically changed. The ripples of energy erupted from a clash between Saint Kings, so they were extremely powerful. All they could do before the ripples was protect themselves. They could not prevent them from reaching the city. If it hit the city below, all the weaker people would become heavily injured or end up dead. Yu clearly understood this as well while witnessing everything unfold. Her eyes shone with an icy-cold gaze as the moon god scepter appeared silently in her hand. The fist-sized jewel embedded in the scepter shone with hazy moonlight. Yu swung the scepter and an extremely pure strand of moonlight force immediately began to radiate from the crystal, forming a weak-looking barrier over the city. The barrier immediately began to violently shake when the energy ripples struck it, but fortunately, the barrier only received some energy ripples and not the direct attacks of the Saint Kings. The barrier successfully blocked the energy. When the rampaging energy in the sky finally settling down, the barrier of moonlight force silently disappeared as well. Yu looked at the exquisite scepter with a pained look. She could clearly feel that there was not much energy left in the scepter. The energy deposited in the scepter by Master is becoming less and less. Yu sighed inside, but flames of fury quickly ignited. She stared at the 9 Saint Kings in a very hostile manner. If she did not make it in time just then, Flame City would have suffered heavy casualties because of the 9 of them. The 9 Saint Kings hovered in the air with sunken faces. Every single one of them had emerged unscathed. Half of them were beyond the 5th heavenly layer and 2 of them were of the 7th heavenly layer, so the attack from the flaming jadeite had failed to harm them with their teamwork. Heavy killing intent filled the eyes of the short old man that Bai Hai had targeted. He was a mighty Saint King, yet he had almost been injured by a mere Saint Ruler. Even though he had no idea what the Saint Ruler had used to deal such a shocking and terrifying attack, he still found it to be a permanent disgrace to his name. Very good. I never thought that after spending over 1,000 years as a hermit, there would actually be a few more people who aren't afraid of dying on the Tianyuan continent. You're a mere Saint Ruler, yet you dare to look down on Saint Kings? Just this will result in irreconcilable consequences. Kid, I don't care who's behind you. I'm killing you for sure today, said the short old man with a heavy tone. He had thought that Bai Hai would definitely have quite a powerful Saint King supporting him since he could produce something as terrifying as the flaming jadeite, but he had come this time in the glorious name of saving the continent. The protector clans and mercenary city were not the only ones who stood on his side, all the Saint Kings of the Tianyuan continent did. He obviously felt no fear at all. Don't you dare. If you even touch great-grandfather Bai Hai, none of the 9 of you will be leaving Flame City today. A cold voice rang out from below as soon as the short old man finished speaking. Yu was enveloped by a layer of clear moonlight force as she quickly flew over from the city lord's estate. At the same time, the bright moon divine hall rose up and hovered above her. Yu's threat immediately caused the 9 Saint Kings' gazes to grow cold. They all became utterly furious. The 9 of them had come with such a powerful party to borrow the bright moon divine hall, yet before they could even speak of the request, their dignity had been trampled over by a Saint Ruler, almost reducing them to a mess. Now, a woman who was not even a Saint Ruler threatened them, which completely shamed all of them. A red-robed independent Saint King coldly snorted. Just as he was about to step forward, he was stopped by a great elder of the Yangji sect. He said through a communication technique, "Brother Halu, we've come to borrow the bright moon divine hall this time, not to cause trouble. Let's not waste too much time. Leave the matter to me." The great elder was initially extremely willing for the 5 independent Saint Kings to teach the flame mercenaries a lesson, but he worried that he would be dragged into it, so he could only give up on that thought. Meanwhile, the matter of borrowing the Bright Moon Divine Hall was for guarding the seal beneath Mercenary City. It was something done in thought for the entire world, so it was irrefutable. As a result, the Great Elder could take it without any worry. Even if Jian Chen came looking for him later on, he would have the support of all the experts across the entire continent. He was obviously not afraid. Jian Chen, our Yangji sect indeed does not have the power to deal with you, but we can destroy the Bright Moon Divine Hall when the world of Forsaken Saints invades the Tianyuan continent. As long as we can weaken you slightly, it's nothing even if we have to endure some pressure. If you really dare to use this to make trouble for us, we won't even need to act personally. The entire continent will become your enemy, he sneered inside. He was tempted to take the Bright Moon Divine Hall and leave immediately when he thought up to there. He no longer hesitated. Suppressing his anger for Yu, he coldly and emotionlessly said, "You must be Yu. Our Tianyuan continent is currently facing a danger that directly affects its fate. There is a tunnel to another world sealed beneath Mercenary City, and the seal has been destroyed now. The experts of the other world can invade us at any moment. The 9 of us have come to borrow your Divine Hall in order to save the world by blocking the tunnel beneath the city. Time is tight right now, so please hand over the Divine Hall immediately so we can take it back to Mercenary City with us." Yu sneered, "The Bright Moon Divine Hall isn't mine. It's my master's. If you want to borrow it, you should ask my master instead." The Great Elder from the Yangji sect immediately became speechless. In reality, he had considered that Yu would decline and, thus, had thought up of many reasons and excuses to combat this. He had even made up his mind to use force, but he had never thought that Yu would respond like that, to have him directly ask Fairy Hao Yu for the Divine Hall. The 4 Saint Kings from the Protector clans knew that Fairy Hao Yu was not dead, that her soul had always existed, and that it remained within the Divine Hall. Other than the great prestige she had left behind in the past, she was just a paper tiger to them, relying on the toughness of the Bright Moon Divine Hall to guard her soul. However, the 5 independent Saint Kings did not know anything about Fairy Yu's soul. The short old man snickered. "Fairy Hao Yu has already been dead for several tens of thousand years. You actually want us to go find the dead Fairy Hao Yu to borrow the Divine Hall? This is a huge joke. Everyone, guarding the tunnel is an extremely pressing matter. We cannot waste any more time. Let's directly take the Divine Hall and leave." As soon as the old man finished talking, the Divine Hall above Yu suddenly began to shine with an intense, silver-white moonlight. It rapidly expanded, becoming a huge, majestic palace in a single moment, looming over their heads like a dark cloud. "Humph! Who said I was dead?" An icy-cold voice rang from the Divine Hall as a huge, illusionary projection of a person appeared above it. Her clothes fluttered in the breeze with her otherworldly disposition. It was Fairy Hao Yu, but her face was blurry and indistinct. The old man who had said that she was dead just before revealed a different expression. He could clearly feel the extremely powerful soul of Fairy Hao Yu, such that his soul was suppressed to the point where he could not move it. Are you Fairy Hao Yu?" The short old man was utterly astounded as disbelief flooded his face. "This Fairy Yu's soul is so powerful. No wonder she can survive until now without her soul dissipating." The Saint Kings from the 2 Protector clans were all shocked inside, but they felt no fear. With just her powerful soul, Fairy Hao Yu was not enough to pose any threat to them. They had even guessed that she probably could not let her soul leave the Divine Hall. Fairy Hao Yu coldly stared at the 9 of them and heavily said, "I've already sensed the shocking changes in Mercenary City. The earthen spirit of Mercenary City has already reached returnance in strength, so even if she can't repel them, it won't change anything even if you take my Divine Hall away." A great elder from the Yuan sect said, "The Bright Moon Divine Hall is the only Divine Hall that can resist attacks from Saint Emperors other than the one in Mercenary City. It doesn't matter if the divine hall can actually block the seal. We need to give it a try. Fairy Hao Yu, please allow us to borrow it. With that, a powerful presence radiated from his body. It surged toward the bright moon divine hall. Chapter 1275, Hao Yu's Might, 3, Fairy Hao Yu's face grew colder. The actions of the great elder from the Yuan sect had infuriated her. She coldly said, "You sure are bold to disrespect me as a mere Saint King. Are you trying to take my divine hall forcefully? Even if Saint Emperors come personally, they'd have to return with nothing, let alone you Saint Kings. I will give you one last opportunity. Leave immediately, or don't blame me for not treating you courteously." The great elder could not help but laugh aloud at Fairy Hao Yu's threat. He said, "Fairy Hao Yu, I would obviously be as weak as an ant in your eyes if you had your former strength, but it's a pity that you're just a soul now. Can I ask what you can do as just a soul? Your soul might be very strong, but I think you can't leave the divine hall, or it'll quickly disperse into the surroundings." Fairy Hao Yu's cold eyes shone with heavy killing intent. To think that someone with her prideful nature would be looked down upon by a Saint King who was not even equal to an ant in her eyes, the flames of fury began to rage inside her. Her killing intent rapidly increased. Seeing how Fairy Hao Yu had reacted, the great elder confirmed his suspicions. He could not help but laugh freely even more. "I know you've cast down quite a few formations in the divine hall, which can even trap Saint Emperors, but as long as we don't enter the divine hall, these formations won't be able to pose any threat to us. We've come this time in consideration for all the lives on the continent. I hope you can understand." After saying that, he looked at the 8 people behind him and said, "Everyone, time is tight right now. We can't waste too much time in regards to the matter of the seal, so for the sake of all the lives on the continent, we cannot think of so many matters. Let's immediately work together to trap the divine hall and forcefully take it to Mercenary City." Without any hesitation, the 8 Saint Kings behind him all flew toward the divine hall. At the same time, they froze the space around Bai Hai and the other saint rulers once more, trapping them there. Below, Bai Lian watched as the 9 Saint Kings flew toward the divine hall with an ugly expression. The light in her eyes flickered as she hesitated. She also possessed a flaming jadeite that could deal an attack from a Saint King at great perfection in her space ring, as well as quite a few quaking thunders that Jian Chen had left with her. The quaking thunders were not of the same quality as the flaming jadeite, but they could also deal a Saint King's attack. She was currently hesitating over whether to use them or not. When Jian Chen had first handed the items to Bai Lian, he had said to not use them so easily unless they faced complete danger. However, Bai Lian also understood that in the current situation, even if she used her flaming jadeite and all her quaking thunders, it would not necessarily be enough to deal with the 9 Saint Kings. The flaming jadeite was no longer enough to pose a threat to them if they worked together. The 9 Saint Kings had already arrived in front of the bright moon divine hall. Every single one of them pulsed with energy since they were planning to trap the divine hall and forcefully take it away with them. But at this moment, the sky began to change. A huge, round moon slowly rose up from the divine hall and glowed with gentle and clear moonlight. This was not the real moon but a projection created through moonlight force and a technique. "Since you all want to die, allow me to assist you. I might just be a soul now, but I'm still not someone that a few ants can trample over." Fairy Hao Yu's voice rang out from the divine hall. Her figure vanished, having completely disappeared into the divine hall. The 9 Saint Kings revealed different expressions. They discovered that they had been trapped by an invisible force when the moon rose from the divine hall. It was not through the abilities of a Saint King nor through the abilities of a Saint Emperor. It used a method that they did not understand. They had even lost control over the vast energy within them. "What's this? God damn it, she's clearly just a soul now, so how can she trap us? Even if she was once a peak Saint Emperor, it's impossible for her to do something like this. The four great elders were greatly shocked inside. Only now did they realize that Fairy Hao Yu was not as simple as they had thought. Peak Saint Emperors had appeared in the Protector clans before, but according to ancient records, they would not be able to use such powerful abilities after they lost their bodies and has been reduced to a soul. Fairy Hao Yu, what did you do to us? An independent Saint King bellowed at the Bright Moon Divine Hall. His voice was forceful, but it clearly lacked confidence. He was unable to determine what the force was even with his knowledge and experience. Don't get flustered, everyone. She's probably used some ancient secret technique, but using this must be extremely exhaustive for her. She definitely can't last for long, said a great elder of the Yangji sect. He tried to control all his energy within him to break free from the mysterious force that trapped him, but he was unable to utilize anything no matter how hard he tried. At this moment, their expressions took a drastic turn for the worse. They paled in that instant as shock filled their eyes. They could actually feel their energy uncontrollably drift out of their bodies before being absorbed by the Divine Hall. Oh no, Fairy Hao Yu's currently absorbing our energy, an independent Saint King cried out while strewn between shock and anger. The 8 other Saint Kings were completely shocked as well. They had discovered that they could only watch helplessly as their energy was siphoned away by the Divine Hall. Let alone stopping the process, they did not even have the ability to flee. This was an extremely terrifying matter to them, because once all their energy was drained away, their strength would become severely limited. Fairy Hao Yu, stop. Stop, Fairy Hao Yu, stop. You're becoming an enemy of the continent by doing this, Fairy Hao Yu, please show mercy. The Tian Yuan continent is about to face a huge disaster, so we should all work together and use everything we have to fend off the world of forsaken saints. We shouldn't be going at each other's lives here. At that moment, all 9 of them had become absolutely frantic. They no longer possessed their haughtiness as they all pleaded. Their voices became much gentler. Didn't you just say before that I can't do anything to you as a soul? Do you really think that you can act as you wish on the Tian Yuan continent with your strength as Saint Kings and that no one will stop you? I'll show you that I can kill you easily even if I'm just a soul now. Fairy Hao Yu's icy cold voice rang from the Divine Hall. It was filled with killing intent. Fairy Hao Yu, please stay your hand. Our protector Yuan sect with show immense gratitude, a great elder from the Yuan sect pleaded, but he failed to sense that the wrinkles on his face were rapidly increasing. He was currently aging at an unbelievable rate. You want to deter me just by using the name of a protector clan? What a joke. What do you think the protector clans are on the Tian Yuan continent are? If I had my body, I could wipe you out with a flick of my finger. I already gave you a chance before, but you were seeking death yourselves. It's no longer my fault. The 9 of you will be the first group of people who die from the formations of the Divine Hall after it's been created. This formation is called lunar years. Fairy Hao Yu coldly replied. Lunar years. The Saint Kings became a little confused after learning the name. They understood what a lunar year was extremely well. From certain aspects, it was time, a label for time. However, they did not understand why she had named the formation lunar years. Arg. No. Impossible, impossible. Suddenly, an independent Saint King cried out. He stared at the 8 other Saint Kings in disbelief as shock filled his eyes. He had just witnessed something too unrealistic to be true. The 8 Saint Kings all looked at him and all of their eyes narrowed. They became filled with disbelief as well, because they had all discovered that the other Saint Kings had become extraordinarily old in just such a short amount of time, and their age was increasing at a visible rate. Our life force is rapidly being drained away. Impossible, this is impossible. This isn't an ability that a Saint Emperor can possess. Even Origin Realm experts can't do something so great, a Saint King cried out in shock. His face became sheet white and completely drained of blood. Lunar years. Lunar years. This is the passage of lunar years, the passage of time. No wonder this formation has this name, a Saint King mumbled in dejection. He was ashen and understood that he probably could not escape from this disaster today. None of them possessed the power to stop the formation from leeching away their life force. At this moment, a seventh heavenly layer independent Saint King's eyes became glassy. His entire body shriveled up, having been reduced to a bag of bones. His soul had already been extinguished. He was the oldest member in the ground and did not have much time left anyway. It had all been drained away in that short moment, becoming the first Saint King to die to Fairy Hao Yu's formation. The hair of the 8 other people grayed as their wrinkles bundled up. Their bodies shriveled at a visible rate. Just earlier, some of them were young men who seemed to be in their prime, yet they had become old now, having been eroded away by time. All the people in Flame City watched from below, as if the most wondrous thing had happened in the world. The glorious Saint Kings just before had actually all become crippled by age. The disparity between before and now was so great that many of them had failed to return to their senses. Even Yu, Bai Hai, and the other saint rulers were the same. Bang! Suddenly, a muffled sound rang through the air as one of the Saint Kings from the Yangji sect exploded into a mist of blood. He paid a self-cannibalizing price to use a secret technique in order to flee, turning into a red streak of light that rapidly ran away. Virtually at the same time, the 3 other Saint Kings from Protector clans had used the same secret techniques as well. They paid an extremely heavy price, leaving behind the 4 independent Saint Kings in the end. It was not because the independent Saint Kings did not have any abilities to flee, but the abilities they possessed could not compare to what the Protector clans possessed. What they knew was not enough to break free from the formation. I never thought you would know this secret technique. It's one of the more commonly seen escape techniques in the Saints' world. I didn't think that you'd actually flee while I was slightly negligent. However, you underestimate the formation far too much. Do you really think that you can escape death just by fleeing like that? Fairy Hao Yu mumbled to herself in the bright moon divine hall as scorn flickered through her eyes. Chapter 1276, The Borrowing of Emperor Armaments. Other than the 4 great elders from the Protector clans who knew fleeing secret techniques, the other 5 independent Saint Kings died in Flame City after their life force had been drained away. Hao Yu was not a merciful person. Even after the Saint Kings plead time and time again, she still killed them. Everyone in the city had become shocked by what had happened above. The Flame Mercenaries had demonstrated great strength once again, causing all the members of the mercenaries to become extremely excited after witnessing such a scene. Their blood started to boil. Originally, they had thought that their captain was extraordinary enough, but now, Fairy Hao Yu seemed to become even more extraordinary than him. She had managed to kill off these glorious Saint Kings in just a short moment. After ending the lives of the independent Saint Kings, the bright moon divine hall returned to how it had been before. The huge moon hovering above slowly disappeared, and even the structure itself shrank back to the size of an ordinary palace. It descended into the city lord's estate once again, standing silently like a novel princess. Yu worried about Fairy Hao Yu's current condition, so she entered the divine hall as soon as possible. Bai Lian became busy as well as she passed down various orders. The vast presences from the 9 Saint Kings had reduced the city into a mess, resulting in countless injured people. There were many things she needed to do to cope with the aftermath. Meanwhile, the space rings of the 5 independent Saint Kings ended up with Bai Lian. Vice City Lord, we might as well hang the corpses of the 5 Saint Kings on the city walls to demonstrate the might of our flame mercenaries. At the same time, we can send out a warning to all the various forces on the Tianyuan continent to tell them that even when our captain is not present, we're still not to be trifled with, a middle-aged man said to Bai Lian. He spoke extremely politely. He was also one of the people who managed the mercenaries. Bai Lian shook her head, they're still saint kings. We should get people to bury them instead to help them retain some dignity. Yes, Vice City Lord, the middle-aged man replied politely before immediately ordering a group of people to carry the 5 corpses out of the city to find a suitable place to be buried. Fairy Hao Yu's illusionary figure sat on a piece of jade in the divine hall. The piece of jade gave off pure and clear moonlight force. It was no simple piece of jade since it had originated from the moon. Yu asked about her in concern from right in front. Master, are you fine? Fairy Hao Yu faintly smiled and said, my dear disciple, you don't need to worry about your master. I may just be a soul now, but I'm not as weak as you've imagined. I've cast down many formations both inside and outside the divine hall. These formations are far more powerful than what the people of the Tianyuan continent can even imagine. Their strength may be restricted by the limited materials, but they can easily block attacks from Saint Emperors. The lunar years is one of them. It's just that using these formations takes up quite a lot of energy. Although this can be replenished by absorbing the energies of others, it still can't make up for when whole formations get used up. As a result, you can't rely on your master for everything in the future. Working hard to increase your own strength is the most important. Yes, master. I will definitely work even harder on cultivating. Yu firmly answered. All the saint kings from various parts of the continent were gathered in a majestic hall within the miniature world of Mercenary City. They all sat in a circle as they discussed how to stop the world of forsaken saints. The number of people gathered there had already reached into the 400s. They were all the saint kings of the continent. Although the divine hall of Mercenary City is extremely tough, we still don't know whether it can stop the reciprocity experts from the world of forsaken saints, and on the continent, the emperor armaments of the 10 protector clans are extremely powerful. They are difficult to control even when several saint kings work together, so I suggest that the protector clans bring all their emperor armaments here and pass them on to Elder Tianjian, who's a saint emperor, to control. The great elder must be able to display even greater strength. May I ask what you think of this? The Grand Elder of Mercenary City slowly inquired as he looked at the people of the 10 protector clans. We, the Heaven's Incense School, do not mind. We are willing to temporarily hand over our Emperor armament to the Great Elder. The schoolmaster of the Heaven's Incense School was the first one to agree to the Grand Elder's suggestion. The Pavilion Master of the Pure Heart Pavilion pondered slightly before saying, Great Elder Tianjian has already reached Saint Emperor and his strength is now incomparable to any one of us. We obviously do not mind handing over the Emperor armament of the Pure Heart Pavilion, except our Emperor armament is rather special. It's slightly different than the 9 other clans. It can only be controlled by those who practice the cultivation method of the Pure Heart Pavilion. As a result, we may have to disappoint the Grand Elder. A Great Elder from the Moyuan clan said, Grand Elder, the power of the Emperor armaments have reached an extremely terrifying level. Even if several Saint Kings control it together, they will suffer a backlash, so probably only Saint Emperors can use them at will. However, can Great Elder Tianjian use so many Emperor armament all by himself? Even if the Great Elder has become a Saint Emperor, he shouldn't be able to control so many Emperor armaments simultaneously. The Great Elder had spoken the doubts of many people present, in particular the people from the Protector clans. They all wondered whether or not Tianjian could control so many Emperor armaments all by himself. After all, they were no ordinary objects. The Grand Elder chuckled, the power of the Emperor armaments from the Protector clans have already reached a level that's enough to terrify all of us. Although the Great Elder has become a Saint Emperor, controlling so many Emperor armaments simultaneously is indeed extremely difficult. However, I am asking to use them for another reason. May I ask what this reason is? Do the Emperor armaments have other uses? A Great Elder from the Heartless School asked. The Grand Elder thought a little before speaking. We have quite a few abilities and secret techniques left behind by the City Lord. These abilities and techniques all possess unpredictable power, and some of them can only be practiced by Saint Emperors. Now that great elder Tianjian has become a Saint Emperor, he's already grasped some of the techniques and abilities that only Saint Emperors can learn, and one of them just happens to allow him to use the Emperor armaments of the Protector clans to cast down an extremely powerful ancient killing formation. The formation can activate the potential power within the Emperor armaments to deal terrifying attacks. Everyone, think about it. If we can cast down this killing formation at the entrance of the tunnel, it will have a shocking effect. With that, the eyes of many people present lit up. At the same time, they were secretly shocked. The heritage of Mercenary City was actually no weaker than the 10 Protector clans. They actually possessed such great abilities and techniques that only Saint Emperors could learn them. Protecting the Tian Yuan continent was the original responsibility of us Protector clans. Since the world of Forsaken Saints is so powerful, that is more than enough of a reason for us all to work together. We can't forsake the continent for our personal needs. Our Shenshao sect is willing to lend our Emperor armament, our Patian sect is also willing to lend our Emperor armament, our Moyuan clan is also willing to lend our Emperor armament, our Yangji sect is willing to lend our Emperor armament, the Yuan sect is willing to lend out their Emperor armament. The various clans all expressed their thoughts. In the blink of an eye, 8 clans agreed to lend out their Emperor armaments, with only the Tyrant's Blade School and Changyang clan left. The Grand Elder immediately looked at the Saint Kings of the Tyrant's Blade School and Changyang Zhu Shao. The Saint Kings from the Tyrant's Blade School hesitated before one of them reluctantly said, "Our founding ancestor, Gui Haidao, has already returned. The Emperor armament is currently in his control, so we have to decline lending it out. However, we believe that the Emperor armament will be able to demonstrate even greater power in our founding ancestors' hands." The Tyrant's Blade School originally wanted to hide the return of their founding ancestor, but now that such a great matter had happened on the continent, there was no point in keeping it hidden anymore. At the same time, they had personally witnessed their founding ancestors' strength when the 100 races had invaded. They were confident that even if their ancestor's identity was revealed, no one on the continent could threaten him. This included Saint Emperors. However, the piece of news was like a bolt from the blue to everyone else. They all became stunned and stared at the Saint Kings in disbelief. None of them believed what they said to be real. "What did you say? Your founding ancestor has returned?" "Xing Feng, what are you blabbering about?" a Saint King who was on good terms with the Tyrant's Blade School replied in shock. He looked at Xing Feng weirdly. Xing Feng also knew that it was very difficult for everyone to believe what he had said. However, he did not explain any further. He nonchalantly answered with, "It doesn't matter if you believe me or not, but we're not going to be lending out our Emperor armament." Many people became confused as soon as they heard what he said. None of them believed that Xing Feng was telling the truth and that this was just an excuse to avoid lending out the Emperor armament. Even though the excuse was extremely exaggerated to such a level that it was unbelievable, no one delved on the matter. After all, the Emperor armament belonged to the Tyrant's Blade School. If they were unwilling, the rest of them could not force them. The Grand Elder then looked at Changyang Zhu Shao. Among the 10 Protector clans, there was only the Changyang clan left to express their thoughts. Chapter 1277, The Changyang clan breaks free. Changyang Zhu Shao raised an eyebrow and nonchalantly said, "Our Zhu branch has broken away from the Protector clan. We no longer have anything to do with the Protector clan. Yun Shao and I obviously haven't come as representatives of the Changyang Protector clan. There's no need for the Grand Elder to ask us members of the Zhu branch about borrowing the Emperor armament." Everyone present was greatly surprised by what Changyang Zhu Shao had said. Many of them showed disbelief. Many of the Saint Kings had a certain understanding of the Changyang clan of the 10 Protector clans. It was divided into the Zhu, Yuan, and Qing branches, and in the countless years it had existed, the 3 branches had always been on good terms. Even if a few disagreements arose every now and then, it would not threaten the stability of the clan. Yet now, Changyang Zhu Xiao had actually said that the Zhu branch had left the Protector clan and that they no longer had anything to do with the Protector clan. Many found this difficult to believe. Changyang Zhu Xiao, is that true? Has your Zhu branch really left the Protector clan? The Grand Elder asked sternly. This was something significant. Changyang Zhu Xiao, you can't be joking, right? The three branches have been on good terms for over 1,000,000 years. Since ancient times, all three branches have acted in unison, so why have you completely fallen out now all of a sudden? A ruddy old man sitting beside Changyang Zhu Xiao asked. He was a great elder from the Moyuan clan and was on rather good terms with Changyang Zhu Xiao. At this moment, everyone present turned their gazes to Changyang Zhu Xiao and Changyang Zhu Yunxiao. The Saint Kings from the Yuan sect and Yangji sect were particularly eager to hear the whole story as they rejoiced inside. They were extremely willing to see the Changyang clan be ripped apart, resulting in a great decrease in strength. Changyang Zhu Xiao remained expressionless. This matter had hurt him very much, so he heavily replied, "How can I be joking about something so significant? I am obviously telling the truth. Our Zhu branch no longer has any connection with the Changyang Protector clan." The room immediately fell silent, but all the people had already begun to accept the reality of the Zhu branch's departure. Although this was a shocking piece of news on the Tianyuan continent, it was not enough to affect them. However, many people realized that the Changyang clan's strength had greatly decreased with the changes. They would definitely fall off the throne as the strongest Protector clan and might even end up as the weakest Protector clan out of all of them. Many people from the other clans celebrated inside. Since the Zhu branch had broken away from the Changyang clan, may I ask why there is no one from the Qing and Yuan branch present representing the Changyang clan? A Saint Kings from a Protector clan asked out of curiosity. The Grand Elder looked around, and indeed, he failed to find the people of the Protector Changyang clan. As a result, he said to a Saint King beside him, "Sixth Elder, I will trouble you to visit the Changyang clan. Please invite them to our city so we can discuss the countermeasures against the world of Forsaken Saints." The Sixth Elder of Mercenary City immediately stood up and clasped his fist at everyone. He clearly said, "Everyone, I shall be dismissing myself temporarily." Afterward, he directly left the miniature world. Although the Protector Changyang clan was extremely far away from Mercenary City, it would only take a Saint King a few seconds to traverse the distance. The Sixth Elder returned in less than 5 minutes and sternly informed everyone, "Grand Elder, I've visited the Changyang clan and discovered that it's been sealed. Not only is it impossible to enter, the people inside cannot come out either. All methods of communication are useless as well." What? The Grand Elder's expression changed as he immediately stood up. Even all the Saint Kings there were greatly shocked. A mighty Protector clan had been sealed, locked up in their miniature world. This was just far too astounding to everyone present. "Sixth Elder, is that true? The Changyang clan has actually been sealed up in their miniature world? They're a Protector clan, for goodness sake. Just who on the current continent has such abilities? Even the Path Lord of Carnal Desires can't do something like this," said an independent Saint King. The Grand Elder did not probe into the matter further. He stared deeply at Changyang Zhu Xiao and Changyang Zhu Yunxiao. "Changyang Zhu Xiao, our Tianyuan continent is currently facing a great danger. Although I don't know just what's happened to your Changyang clan, we just happen to be in need of people. We want to break through the seal. Do the two of you have any objections?" At this moment, a minute change occurred in the gazes toward Changyang Zhu Xiao and Changyang Zhu Yunxiao. There was admiration and disdain. Many of them had connected the matter to the Zhu branch since they had broken away. Changyang Zhu Xiao gently sighed. He knew that there was probably quite a few people who misunderstood the Zhu branch, so he needed to explain, "It's all because of the saint's fruit. When Jian Chen obtained the saint's fruit back then, Changyang Qingyun wanted to take it for himself, resulting in never-before-seen internal strife. Completely angered, Jian Chen worked with the three magical beasts to seal up the Changyang clan. This matter has always pained me the most. If you want to break the seal and free the people from the two branches, our Zhu branch obviously has no objections. Everyone immediately understood what had happened with Changyang Zhu Zhao's explanation, but they were once again shocked by Jian Chen and the three magical beasts' extraordinary methods of doing things. They could actually seal up a protector clan. It would be difficult for even saint emperors to achieve something so extraordinary. This was because every single protector clan possessed methods to deal with saint emperors. That was exactly what I thought. Changyang Qingyun is just far too greedy. When the fight over the saint's fruit occurred, he did not contribute much at all, so just why does Jian Chen have to hand over the saint's fruit? In my opinion, the Yuan and Qing branches completely deserve it. It's all their own fault, said the Saint King from the Moyuan clan righteously. At this moment, four bloodied and messy Saint Kings staggered into the room. Every single one of them was horrendously old. Their life forces were extremely weak. Oh my God! One of the great elders from the Yangji sect recognized one of the four and immediately paled in fright. He arrived before the four of them with a flash and stared at one of them in disbelief. He cried out, "Ji Tian, how have you become like this?" "It's Fairy Hao Yu. Fairy Hao Yu's used a formation to siphon away our life force," he weakly replied. Right after he finished speaking, he seemed to have lost all his energy, directly falling to the ground. He shriveled at a visible rate, becoming a dry corpse very soon. Afterward, the three other Saint Kings all collapsed as well, suffering the same outcome as the great elder from the Yangji sect. The great elders from the Yangji sect and the Yuan sect all revealed extremely ugly expressions. They had already recognized the three other people. They were the Saint Kings they had sent to Flame City to retrieve the Bright Moon Divine Hall. They had never thought that they would fail their mission and lose their lives. Losing two Saint Kings all of a sudden was an extremely heavy loss to both the Yangji sect and the Yuan sect. This Fairy Hao Yu has gone too far. It's fine if she doesn't want to lend her divine hall, but why did she have to kill our great elders? We cannot let the matter slide, said a Saint King from the Yuan sect painfully. We will definitely come back with an explanation for this matter. All the great elders of the Yangji sect were brimming with killing intent. Losing two Saint Kings weakened their strength by 30%. The Grand Elder of Mercenary City stood up and said in a heavy voice, "Please stay yourselves. The matter at hand is to find a way to deal with the problem of the world of Forsaken Saints. We can look for Fairy Hao Yu for an explanation after we remove the threat of the other world." Correct. We need to get our priorities straight. The world of Forsaken Saints is a huge threat, so please dismiss your enmity with Fairy Hao Yu for now. At the same time, Fairy Hao Yu won't be easy to deal with since she can handle 9 Saint Kings so easily, and she's protected by extraordinary formations. We cannot complicate matters at this time, said the Pavilion Master of the Pure Heart Pavilion. Right now, she was the one who possessed the most prestige aside from the Grand Elder of Mercenary City. The great elders of the two sects silently mulled over the matter before finally choosing to listen to the Grand Elder and Pavilion Master's suggestions. They now understood Fairy Hao Yu's strength with the outcome of the Saint Kings. Even though she was just a soul, she was not as weak as they had imagined. They needed to group together if they wanted to take revenge. Afterward, the Grand Elder and over 20 Saint Kings from various organizations visited the Changyang clan. At the same time, they sent envoys with valuable gifts to the 100 races, magical beasts, and sea race, to inform them of the world of Forsaken Saints. In the miniature world of the Protector Changyang clan, the 5 great elders hovered in the air with sunken faces. They stared in the direction of the World Gate. In the several months they had been trapped there, they had used all they had to attack the seal for every single moment that passed. They had even activated the Emperor armament several times, but they still failed to get through the seal. The seal's strength had completely exceeded their expectations. Even Saint Emperor would struggle to get through this seal. Are we going to be trapped until we pass away? Changyang Qing Juri said with a sunken face. No, there needs to be an extremely great amount of energy to maintain this seal. For every day the seal exists, a portion of its power will be consumed. Once it runs out completely, we'll be able to break through, but we still need to attack the seal continuously for the time being, so we can speed up the consumption and get out earlier, Changyang Qingyun also said with a sunken face. It was an eternal disgrace for them, a mighty protector clan, to be sealed in their own miniature world. Once I break out, I will use everything and anything I have to deal with Jian Chen, Changyang Qingyunfeng also said with a darkened expression. Heavily killing intent filled his eyes. Changyang Qingyun's eyes were also filled with hatred. He said through clenched teeth, once the seal breaks, we'll control the Emperor armament and visit Lore City. We will not let a single member of the Zhu branch go. Changyang Qingyun thought back to when Changyang Zhu Xiao did everything he could to stop him and killing intent immediately surged for him. If it were not for Changyang Zhu Xiao, he probably would have obtained the saint's fruit long ago. Chapter 1278, Friend or Foe? In a desolate mountain range several tens of thousand kilometers from Mercenary City, Changyang Zhu Yunkong and Huang Tianba had both carved out a cave. They currently cultivated in there. They did not pay much attention to the shocking changes of Mercenary City. At that time, several hundred saint kings had gathered, and even the great elder Tian Jian, who had become a saint emperor, was present. If the matter could not even be dealt with by all these experts, it was impossible for the two of them, mere saint rulers, to be of help. Their strength increased rapidly with Xiao Ling's assistance beneath Mercenary City. It had improved at a tremendous pace. Although they were still saint rulers, they were both at the peak of the 9th heavenly layer, only a single step away from Saint King. The disparity between Saint Ruler and Saint King was extremely large. They had both secretly made up their minds to get through the tough barrier in a single stroke and become Saint Kings. Changyang Zhu Yunkong's talent was far greater than Huang Tianba's talent. The seal that had been planted in his head before forced him to remain as a heaven saint master, so he could not become a saint ruler. Now that the seal was gone, his strength increased at an astonishing rate with Xiao Ling's assistance. He had already caught up to Huang Tianba, and with the talent he had displayed, he might even end up reaching Saint King before Huang Tianba. Other than the two of them, even the loyal bodyguard Jian Chen had brought over from the Radiant Saint Master Union, Ong Ling, was in the mountain range as well. He was 1,000 kilometers from the two of them. Compared to Huang Tianba and Changyang Zhu Yunkong, Ong Ling's talent was far more ordinary. When Jian Chen had brought him over, he was a 6th cycle Heaven Saint Master, and one who had been like that for many years. However, he was still the same after the period of cultivation in Mercenary City. The difference between Heaven Saint Master and Saint Ruler was so great that it was comparable to a chasm. It was the difference of two major realms of cultivation. A corresponding amount of talent and ability of comprehension was required to become a Saint Ruler. It was not all about cultivating arduously. After leaving the underground of Mercenary City, Ming Dong did not go with them. Instead, he returned to Mercenary City all by himself to check on the current situation there. At the same time, he learned that Jian Chen was in the Sea Realm. Afterward, Ming Dong remained in the city. He continued to cultivate in seclusion in a chamber deep beneath the city. At the same time, Bai Hai and Bai Lian delivered a large pile of high-class monster cores to him. A portion of them came from Jian Chen while the others came from the 5 independent Saint Kings who had recently passed away. The 5 great elders hovered beside one another in the sealed miniature space of the Changyang clan. They silently stared at the world gate as both resentment and anger burned within them, coupled with some helplessness. Bang! Suddenly, a heavy sound rang from the world gate's direction. A stream of ripples appeared in the space around the Wollard Gate, causing the surrounding energy of the world to surge. It shocked all the saint rulers within the Changyang clan. The sudden changes of the World Gate attracted the attention of the 5 great elders as soon as it had happened. All of their eyes immediately lit up as they stared in the direction of the World Gate with interest. Bang! A second sound rang from the direction of the World Gate. Not only was it much louder than before, even the space rippled more violently. Powerful pulses of energy wrapped around the World Gate and shook it up. Many saint rulers flew over from all directions, gathering behind the 5 great elders. All of them were dejected and bitter. A 9th heavenly layer saint ruler old man politely asked, "Great elders, may I ask what is happening?" The 5 great elders all remained silent. They stared fixedly in the direction of the World Gate with stern expressions. Only until the 3rd bang did their faces finally change. They became extremely excited. "There's people outside attacking the seal. Fantastic, there's someone who's finally discovered that we've been sealed, and they're currently assisting us in breaking through the seal." Changyang Qing Jury immediately beamed in happiness. In the time that they had been stuck in the miniature world, they had attempted countless methods to contact people outside, but all of them had failed in the end. The seal that plugged the World Gate was extremely powerful and profound. It could stop all methods of communications, and even ancient secret techniques were not strong enough to penetrate the seal. Changyang Qing Yun, Changyang Qing Yun Feng, Changyang Yuan Wuji, and Changyang Yuan Zhenghua became extremely delighted as well. They had waited far too long for this day. Although being trapped here did not threaten their lives, none of them wished to be locked up by someone else. "Let's move immediately and attack the seal from the inside. We'll work with the people outside, so it'll be even easier to get through this seal," Changyang Qing Yun immediately called out. The 4 others nodded simultaneously and all began to attack the seal with all they had. Immediately, a vast pressure descended from the sky, permeating the entire miniature world. The air seemed to have froze while all the energy of the world had stopped. The 5 Saint Kings were extremely eager to smash through the seal. They used Saint Tier battle skills right from the start. They could use Saint Tier battle skills at will as Saint Kings, completely charging them up in a single moment. An extremely powerful sword chi erupted from the sword in Changyang Qing Yun's hand, striking the seal as sword 100 meters long. Changyang Qing Jury did not use his saint weapon. He cleanly struck out with his palm, condensing a palm of several dozen meters in length as it struck the World Gate. Extremely powerful wind-attributed saint force permeated Changyang Qing Yunfeng's surroundings before turning into a whirlwind that wrapped around him. The whirlwind rapidly spun as it reached for the sky, connecting to the very top of the miniature world. It caused the frozen energy of the world to wildly churn. Afterward, he swung out with both arms as the whirlwind immediately surged toward the World Gate, causing the surrounding space to distort violently. A 3-meter-wide fireball hovered above Changyang Yuan Wuji. It shone brightly like the sun as its terrifying heat pervaded the miniature world, causing the temperature to rapidly skyrocket. Afterward, it immediately shot out as a red streak of light when Changyang Yuan Wuji's hand waved his hand toward the World Gate. Changyang Yuan Zhenghua also produced an extremely powerful sword chi that he sent at the World Gate. Wherever it passed by, ripples would cascade through space. 5 Saint Kings had used Saint Tier battle skills in unison. The disturbance was so great that it was enough to destroy the surroundings. Even the space of the miniature world, which was much tougher than outside, found it rather difficult to endure. The figures of 18 divine halls had already appeared in the sky, stabilizing the space. Outside the World Gate, over 20 Saint Kings hovered sternly in the sky with the Grand Elder of Mercenary City at the front. All of them gazed at the invisible seal before them. "Those 3 magical beasts sure are skillful. The seal they've cast here is actually so powerful. It hasn't broken after 3 combined attacks from us," the Grand Elder could not help but praise them. He felt much admiration for Rui Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu. Afterward, he glanced at the surrounding Saint Kings and loudly said, "Everyone, the seal is far stronger than any one of us have imagined. Everyone has to use our full strength to smash through the seal together. All right. Let's all prepare before attacking together on the Grand Elder's signal," a Saint King from a protector clan called out. Great Elder Tianjian of Mercenary City had now become a Saint Emperor, and they also had the protection of the Barrier Spirit, which was a returnance expert. They were so powerful that all the protector clans were now left in the dust. This also made Mercenary City the leaders of the entire continent in some certain sense, the evident representatives. Within the miniature world, the Saint-tier battle skills collided with the seal almost at the same time, which immediately caused it to violently shake. However, it was still not enough to smash through it. At this moment, the experts outside the World Gate used their powerful attacks as well. The strike was clearly much more powerful than the 5 Saint-tier battle skills. Rui Jin's seal finally caved in after resisting so many powerful attacks, collapsing instantly. The Changyang clan, which had been sealed up for several months, was finally free. As soon as the seal was broken, the 5 great elders eagerly charged out without even waiting for the rampaging energy to settle. As soon as they arrived outside, they discovered all the Saint Kings floating in the air. They obviously knew that the reason they could have been freed was because of all these Saint Kings. They did not hesitate at all and immediately clasped their hands in gratitude. The Grand Elder raised his hand and said, "The Protector clans and Mercenary City are just one big family. We all protect the Tian Yuan continent silently. It's nothing, so there's no need to thank us." At this moment, Changyang Qingyun seemed to think of something. His gaze immediately grew cold. He clasped his hands at them all and said, "Since so many authoritative members of various organizations have gathered here today, allow me to announce a significant matter to everyone. This matter is so great that it can affect the safety of the entire continent." Chapter 1279, The Heavenly Enchantress Strength. 1. Everyone present wavered when they heard that, including the Grand Elder of Mercenary City. All of them could not help but think of the world of Forsaken Saints. Did Changyang Qingyun learn about the world of Forsaken Saints before us? An independent Saint King thought. Changyang Qingyun paused slightly. He became extremely stern and said, "I believe everyone still remembers the war god who invaded our continent and slayed many of our experts in ancient times, right? Now, the war god of the 100 races has reappeared. If he successfully matures, it will definitely lead to a bloody storm on the Tian Yuan continent. The war god is currently with Jian Chen. We need to kill the war god before he fully matures, or we'll be in for another disaster." Everyone became shocked by this information other than the Grand Elder. The war god of the 100 races was one of the 4 existences that had surpassed Saint Emperor in ancient times. He had once been a terrifying nightmare for the humans, and the 10 protector clans could not stop him even after using everything they had. If Mo Tianyun had not appeared out of nowhere in that final moment and repelled him, the Tian Yuan continent probably would have ended up in the hands of the 100 races. The reappearance of the war god was just far too astounding to everyone. Only the Grand Elder remained as usual. He chuckled like it was nothing. "Fantastic, utterly fantastic. The war god of the 100 races sure has come at the right time. Now that our continent is facing devastating danger and are in need of power, the war god reappears. That's like giving us exactly what we need. The Grand Elder is extremely correct. Not only has the war god reappeared, even the winged tiger god has been born again. If they both mature successfully, they will become Origin Realm experts. They'll be the peak powers of our world," said the ancestral emperor of the Felicity Empire. The great elders became stunned when they processed what the ancestral emperor had said. They were completely at a loss. They glanced past the Saint Kings that had saved them with an odd expression. Not only did they fail to discover any grimness, quite a few of them were even rejoicing. In ancient times, the war god Ergens created an irreconcilable hatred between him and the humans and magical beasts. The Tian Yuan continent had almost fallen into the hands of the 100 races. Now that the war god had reappeared, he would soon surpass the level of Saint Emperor. Not only did these Saint Kings do nothing after learning about the war god, they celebrated instead. This immediately made the 5 great elders wonder whether they were still on the Tian Yuan continent or not, and if the Saint Kings before them were humans or not. This was because the only people who would celebrate after hearing that the war god had returned would be the 100 races to the 5 of them. Changyang Qingyun, since you've been freed, please come to Mercenary City with us. Something significant has happened on the continent. Mercenary City has already invited the other protector clans and Saint Kings scattered across the continent to gather there. Even a few overseas human experts have been invited to come as well, the Grand Elder said sternly. Something significant has happened? Have you all learned that the war god has reappeared long ago and that we're gathering all the experts to deal with him? Changyang Qingyun asked in doubt. To him, nothing was more important than the reappearance of the war god. However, what he did not understand was why the Saint Kings rejoiced when he mentioned the war god before. He could not understand no matter how hard he thought. The Grand Elder's stern expression immediately melted away because of what Changyang Qingyun had said. He shook his head with a forced smile. If it was before, the reappearance of the war god would obviously have been an extremely great matter, but it's different now. The seal beneath Mercenary City has been destroyed. The experts of the world of Forsaken Saints can invade the Tian Yuan continent at any moment. We just happen to be in need of power and the war god has suddenly appeared in these times of need. It's obviously something fantastic to all of us. What? The world of Forsaken Saints? Was Grand Elder Tian Jian telling the truth all those years ago? Changyang Yuan Wuji immediately became surprised and asked in disbelief. The 4 other great elders revealed different expressions because of this news as well. They looked at each other as shock filled the depths of their eyes. They had once heard about the seal beneath Mercenary City from Tian Jian, but they thought it was a story that was exaggerated and unrealistic, so none of them believed it. Was that matter true? They all thought inside. They could already sense a vague answer to that question after seeing how the Saint Kings present all beamed when they announced that the war god had returned. Everyone, time is tight. Please come to Mercenary City right now, and then we can discuss the important matters. The Grand Elder invited them once again. Without saying anything more, he ripped open a space gate and left. The Saint Kings that had come with him all ripped open space gates as well and left through them. Seeing how everyone had left, the 5 great elders pondered a little before hurriedly passing over some matters to their clansmen. They then closed the world gate and ripped open space gates, hurrying to Mercenary City together. When they arrived in Mercenary City, they discovered with a glance that the city had been reduced to rubble. Their hearts immediately sank inside. They had never thought that such great changes would have occurred on the Tian Yuan continent in the few months they had been trapped in the miniature world. The 5 great elders were all invited into the miniature world of Mercenary City. The Saint Kings gathered there had increased. Mercenary City had already invited the Saint Kings of the 10 protector clans, 3 great empires, and various ancient clans. Even the overseas human Saint Kings had hurried over. All the Saint Kings there were rather heavy-hearted, causing the atmosphere of the room to become rather heavy as well. The matter of the world of Forsaken Saints pressed against their chests like a boulder, making breathing difficult. The 5 great elders from the protector Changyang clan discovered Changyang Zhu Shao and Changyang Zhu Yun Shao on the ground, and they became absolutely furious. However, they understood that the circumstances were not suitable to resolve the conflicts of their clan right now. At the same time, their disagreements with the Zhu branch over the saint's fruit was not a pretty matter. Changyang Qingyun obviously did not wish for the matter to be spread beyond the clan, so he just ended up closing his eyes, treating the two of them as if they did not exist. At this moment, a gentle, pleasant, and almost divine note suddenly rang out from outside. The zither note seemed to possess endless amounts of charm with a mysterious power. All the heavy-hearted Saint Kings relaxed after hearing the music. The note had removed all the worries and negative emotions from the minds of the Saint Kings, allowing them to return to their usual mood. In the blink of an eye, the heavy atmosphere of the room vanished. It had been replaced by a light, enthusiastic atmosphere. All the Saint Kings present were greatly shocked and they sensed the changes in their emotions. They turned their eyes to the entrance of the room and saw an elegant, veiled woman in a purple dress walking in gently and carrying a zither. The woman did not give off any presence, as if she had never cultivated before. However, the presence she gave off was divine, noble, and otherworldly, as if she was a goddess. Her eyes were bright and bewitching. Although her appearance was obscured, her beauty was rather evident from her limpid eyes. What a beauty! Why have I never heard of this woman? At this moment, many Saint Kings sighed inside. At the same time, they thought the same thing. There were actually barely any of them who knew about this woman. Weird. She obviously didn't touch the strings, but I can feel that the note clearly originated from her. Just where did it come from? How did she produce a note without using her hands or touching the strings of the zither? A Saint King was filled with curiosity. He could not think of an explanation no matter what. Even with his experiences and knowledge, he could not explain what had just happened. It's actually Hao Wu's daughter, known as the Heavenly Enchantress. I never thought that her way of the zither would have reached such a profound level, where it can actually affect the minds of Saint Kings. This is unbelievable, an old man in luxurious robes thought. However, he then secretly sighed as gloominess filled his face. The old man was the ancestor of the Tsar family in the City of God as well as Tsar Tsayan's great-grandfather, Tsar Vamos. The Heavenly Enchantress walked into the room steadily as she carried her zither. She did not look at the surrounding Saint Kings at all, only fixing her gaze on the elders of Mercenary City. She lowered her head slightly and gently said, "I've come to participate in the gathering from the invitation. I greet the elders of Mercenary City." It was not difficult to hear that her voice carried some respect for the elders of Mercenary City. I never thought that Shangguan Mu'er would come to Mercenary City so quickly. I had thought that it would take you a few days. What surprised me even more is that your comprehension of the way of the zither has reached an unfathomable level after a few decades of not seeing you, which has deeply shocked all of us, the Grand Elder smiled. It's you. As soon as the Grand Elder finished speaking, a high-pitched voice rang out. With Changyang Qingyun at the front, all 5 great elders stood up as they glared at the Heavenly Enchantress. They were furious. Yes, it's her. She was the one who secretly used her music to make the clansmen fall into a slumber, preventing us from using the origin formation successfully. Otherwise, how could we have been sealed up by those magical beasts? Changyang Qingjuri furiously cried out. Although you hid yourself and we never saw your appearance, your zither music has given you away. On the entire continent, there is no one else who has achieved such accomplishments in music other than you, Changyang Yuan Zhenhua said through gritted teeth. When they had been sealed, it was all because of the Heavenly Enchantress. If she had not secretly interfered, Rui Jin and Hong Lian would not have been enough to seal the Changyang clan. Chapter 1280, The Heavenly Enchantress Strength, 2. All the Saint Kings were secretly shocked by what the great elders from the Changyang clan had said. Drastic changes occurred to their opinions of the Heavenly Enchantress, and some of them even felt extremely fearful of her. Although they did not know her exact strength right now, she was actually bold enough to even provoke a protector clan. At the same time, they could tell from what the great elders had said that she was directly connected to the sealing of the Changyang clan. That was not something an ordinary person would or could do. The few authoritative saint kings of mercenary cities all became doubtful. Some of them knew the heavenly enchantress extremely well, but she never would have been able to do something like that with their prior understanding, to influence a powerful protector clan. Changyang Qingyun, what has exactly happened? Were there some misunderstandings between you and Shangguan Mu'er? The Grand Elder asked in doubt. He refused to believe that the heavenly enchantress possessed the power to shake an entire protector clan. Perhaps due to the fact that the heavenly enchantress walked a unique path of cultivation, none of them could see through her strength. She kept her presence erased as well, which made it even more impossible. This was why the elders still believed that the heavenly enchantress was a saint ruler. Changyang Qingyun stared at her with a darkened expression and said through gritted teeth, "So your name is Shangguan Mu'er." He then turned to the Grand Elder and said with a apple face, "The traitor Jian Chen and the two magical beasts attacked our Changyang clan back then and used a secret technique in an attempt to seal our world gate. They wanted to trap us all in the miniature world, but we're still a protector clan that has existed for over 1,000,000 years. Our heritage is so powerful that even when the two of them possessed strength equal to saint emperors, sealing our clan was just wishful thinking." Many saint kings secretly nodded. All these people understood just how powerful the protector clans on the continent were. Although they did not possess any saint emperors in this current age, their heritage still existed. Even saint emperors could not abuse them. Sealing a protector clan probably could only be achieved when several saint emperors worked together, so just two great perfection saint king magical beasts with origin weapons and armor obviously would not have been enough. Changyang Zhu Xiao, Changyang Zhu Yun Xiao, and the other protector clans that had gathered here listened with all their attention. All of them knew that the heritage of all 10 protector clans was basically the same. They all had an extraordinary emperor armament, 18 divine halls, and all had an origin formation that could claim the lives of saint emperors. With such a great heritage, even if the protector clan could not go on the offensive against 2 saint emperors, they could still defend. Sealing them was virtually impossible because sealing a protector clan was far more difficult than attack one. As a result, they were all extremely curious as to how the magical beasts managed to seal up the Changyang clan. Changyang Qingyun continued, "Afterward, our clan used our origin formation. It's powerful, but it needs to be charged up." Just as all the experts of the clan were charging it up, a zither note suddenly appeared that could attack the souls of people. It knocked all the people in the clan unconscious other than us saint kings in a short moment. The activation of the formation failed, and coupled with the fact that the 5 of us were exhausted, the magical beasts used this opportunity to seal us up. "What did you say?" That zither note knocked everyone unconscious, including saint rulers? A saint king from another protector clan asked in doubt. Changyang Qingyun sternly nodded, "Correct." The zither note possessed an extremely powerful soul attack, such that only saint kings could resist it. Everyone gasped. This was definitely unmatched, music possessing such wondrous effects. The Grand Elder asked the heavenly enchantress, "Shangguan Mu'er, is that all true? Did you really interfere secretly?" The saint kings of Mercenary City still found it difficult to believe because the heavenly enchantress never had such an ability from what they remembered. Her achievements in the zither were indeed extremely great, but they could not believe that she powerful enough that 9th heavenly layer saint rulers could not resist. The heavenly enchantress nodded slightly and admitted to what she had done. She looked at the 5 great elders and said, "Are only protector clans allowed to abuse people on the continent and no one else is allowed to do the same back? If you want revenge, come at me." "Humph, what an ignorant girl. Do you really think that you are invincible on the continent just because you know some soul attacks? Allow me to witness your way of the zither today," Changyang Qingyun immediately bellowed in fury. "Changyang Qingyun, Shangguan Mu'er, our continent is currently facing an even greater threat. It's not time for us to fight with each other. It'll only weaken our own strength," the Grand Elder of Mercenary City tried to persuade them. He wanted to stop this battle. Changyang Qingyun was already a Saint King at great perfection. He did not believe that the heavenly enchantress was his opponent. Changyang Qingyun smiled hideously. He had already made up his mind to teach the heavenly enchantress a proper lesson. He opened his mouth, and just as he was about to tell the Grand Elder that he would not threaten the heavenly enchantress' life, he was cut off by her. "Don't worry, Grand Elder. I know how far to go. I will not threaten his life." Although the heavenly enchantress' voice was cold, it was filled with confidence. Changyang Qingyun's face hardened as his pale face immediately became filled with fury. That was what he wanted to say originally, but he had never thought that the heavenly enchantress would speak such bold words instead. Changyang Qingyun immediately became utterly furious when he thought about the fact that he, a mighty Saint King at great perfection, was being looked down upon by a young girl. All the Saint Kings present hardened their faces as well. They looked at the heavenly enchantress with strange gazes, as many of them thought, "Does she think she is a Saint Emperor to take a Saint King at great perfection so lightly? Even if her achievements in the way of the zither are so great that she can easily incapacitate Saint rulers, the souls of Saint Kings at great perfection are not comparable." The heavenly enchantress and Changyang Qingyun immediately left the miniature world. After what had happened, all the Saint Kings who had gathered to talk about the world of forsaken saints paused the meeting and went out to watch. This would be an extremely unique battle since it involved the heavenly enchantress, who was skilled with soul attacks and was fighting against a Saint King at great perfection. Everyone was interested. There was rarely anyone on the continent who could use soul attacks. Among the peak experts, there was only the Path Lord of Carnal Desires, but what he was skilled in was very different from the heavenly enchantress way of the zither. As a result, the people of the continent did not know a lot about this avenue of attack, so they wanted to take advantage of the battle to increase their knowledge. 100 kilometers from Mercenary City, the heavenly enchantress hovered in the air with her zither. None of her energy leaked from her body, so she seemed just like an ordinary person. However, the space around her would ripple in an undetectable fashion. In front of her hovered Changyang Qingyun. He held a thin sword, which shone with cold light. Energy surged from him and caused the space around him to distort slightly. Several hundred Saint Kings gathered around them to watch. All of them hovered 10 kilometers away and watched with great attention. "Today, I'll make you pay the price for your arrogance," Changyang Qingyun coldly said before a tremor passed through his sword. With a crisp resonance, he produced a 10-meter-long sword chi that shot toward the heavenly enchantress. The sword chi moved as a streak of light. Wherever it passed, an evident black crack would be left behind. The heavenly enchantress stood unmoving like a mountain. She gently rested her fingers on the zither strings and casually struck a note. Ding! With a crisp sound, a visible sound wave shot out from the zither, headed toward the powerful sword chi that Changyang Qingyun had produced. With a boom, the simple-looking sound wave struck the 10-meter-wide sword chi. It actually dispersed the shocking sword chi before continuing toward Changyang Qingyun without weakening at all. Changyang Qingyun suddenly narrowed his eyes, but the sword wave moved just far too quickly. It arrived before him in the blink of an eye. Changyang Qingyun stabbed out without thinking. He used 80% of his strength in the attack. The sword struck the sound wave, and with a bang, the violent energy ripped open the surrounding space, reducing it to darkness. The sound wave was dispersed by Changyang Qingyun's attack, but Changyang Qingyun did not lighten up either. A single sound wave had forced him to use 80% of his strength. The heavenly enchantress' strength had completely exceeded anything he had imagined. "Let's see if you can block my Saint-tier battle skill." Changyang Qingyun called out and immediately decided to use a Saint-tier battle skill. He wanted to finish the battle as soon as possible. "Unfortunately, you've run out of time to cast it," replied the heavenly enchantress coldly before striking a string again, producing a clear note. The music seemed divine to spectating Saint Kings. Even though it was a single note, it was still enough to enchant them. However, the note seemed like thunder had just exploded in Changyang Qingyun's head, causing him to quiver and almost fall out of the sky. The casting time of the Saint Tier battle skill was also disrupted. Changyang Qingyun felt like the note was a huge hammer that heavily struck his soul. It caused his head to lighten as his consciousness blurred, as if his soul was about to shatter. The heavenly enchantress struck another string and another visible sound wave shot out. Before Changyang Qingyun could recover, it passed through the left side of his chest and instantly shattered his heart. Changyang Qingyun grunted and spat out a mouthful of blood. His blurring consciousness gradually returned to him, and he immediately discovered that his heart had been destroyed. He paled instantly. "If I wanted to kill you, you'd be dead already." The heavenly enchantress returned her zither to her hands as she coldly stared at Changyang Qingyun. Changyang Qingyun became stunned and gloomy. He knew that the heavenly enchantress was right. If she really wanted to kill him, the sound wave only needed to target his soul instead of his heart and he would definitely be dead. What made it difficult for him to accept was that he, a mighty saint king at great perfection, had actually been defeated so easily. He did not even have the power to counterattack the heavenly enchantress. There was no out time to cast his Saint Tier battle skills or any secret techniques. "Impossible, this is impossible," Changyang Qingyun mumbled. He refused to accept this as reality. The several hundred saint kings looked at each other in the distance. Disbelief was plastered across all their faces. The outcome was just far too surprising. A great elder of a protector clan, a saint king at great perfection, was actually this weak before the heavenly enchantress. What is her strength? Is she a saint king at great perfection? Or is she a saint emperor? Changyang Zhu Xiao stared blankly as shock filled his eyes. Tsar Vamos also became tongue-tied at what had just happened, unable to return to his senses after quite some time. Only after quite a long time did he sigh at the sky. He thought, "How Wu's powerful enough. I never thought that his daughter would be even more terrifying than him, to be able to defeat a saint king at great perfection so easily. Has his daughter already become a saint emperor? Is this really Shangguan Mu'er? After a few decades, how has she become so powerful? If it were me instead, would not be anywhere close to her opponent." The Grand Elder was also shocked by this. Even the elders beside him were the same. They all stared blankly at the heavenly enchantress, remaining speechless for quite a long while. If Rui Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu were present at this moment, they would definitely discover that the heavenly enchantress had become much more powerful compared to when she had assisted them with sealing the protector Changyang clan. Chapter 1281, Movements of the World of Forsaken Saints. Changyang Qingyun's defeat was an extremely great hit to the morale of the Changyang clan. Changyang Qingyun Feng, Changyang Qing Juri, Changyang Yuan Wuji, and Changyang Yuan Zhenghua all paled as they spectated from afar. At that moment, they felt the world spin, as if the sky was about to collapse. Changyang Qingyun is the strongest person in the Changyang clan, and even he's not the heavenly enchantress opponent. He couldn't even last 3 attacks. This heavenly enchantress is just far too terrifying. She can't be a saint ruler, Changyang Qingyun Feng thought in shock. The strength the heavenly enchantress had displayed was so great that they felt despair. The dead silence was finally broken after a while. The Grand Elder of Mercenary City breathed heavily and said, "Why don't we end the enmity between Shangguan Mu'er and the Changyang clan here? Everyone, the battle has ended. Please return to the miniature world so that we can continue our meeting." With that, all the Saint Kings gathered there returned. Meanwhile, the heavenly enchantress said no more and returned with everyone else with her zither. All that was left in the end were the 5 great elders of the Changyang Protector clan. They all stood around in gloom. Sigh, let's go as well. Only after quite a long time did Changyang Yuanzhenghua sigh at the sky before turning to leave. What had happened today was undoubtedly a slap to their faces in the eyes of the other protector clans. Not only did they lose all their dignity, they were, more importantly, heavily disgraced. At this moment, Changyang Qingyun returned to his senses as well. When he thought about how he had announced that he wanted to teach the ignorant heavenly enchantress a lesson, he felt his face burn. He was tempted to just find a hole and hide in it. He had lost all his dignity with what had happened today. He was too ashamed to see people again. At that moment, Changyang Qingyun seemed to have aged a lot. In just a few short months, their protector clan had been disgraced twice. This had never happened throughout history. The Spirit King stood in front of the tunnel to the Tian Yuan continent in the world of Forsaken Saints. He emotionlessly stared at the tunnel of distorted space. Behind him, over 40 Origin Realm experts stood silently in a single line with a group of Saint Emperors gathered behind them. This tunnel is rapidly stabilizing. Saint Kings can pass through it now, and probably in around a dozen days, Saint Emperors will be able to pass through, said the Spirit King. Spirit King, why don't we send a group of Saint Kings through the tunnel to investigate the circumstances of the other side, so we can gain an understanding as to the exact power of the other world? A young man at Receival Young inquired courteously from behind the Spirit King. The Spirit King sank into his thoughts before nodding slightly. He said without even looking back, 8 hall elders, immediately return to the hall and choose some Saint Kings of great perfection. Bring them here. They can do the investigating. Yes, sir. The 8 returnance experts from behind the Spirit King replied at the same time before leaving the peak of the mountain together. The central mountain in the World Mountains was extremely dangerous. Even Receival experts would face danger there, so the only way to bring Saint Kings up was for returnance experts to move them personally. The several hundred Saint Emperors had only managed to reach the top safely due to the protection from the Spirit King and the 8 returnance experts. Even though that was the case, several of them had passed away due to the horrible environment as they scaled the mountain. Soon after that, the 8 returnance experts all returned. They had brought several Saint Kings with them, 50 total. It was not because they did not want to bring more people, but that Saint Kings at great perfection were not as powerful as Saint Emperors. It was difficult for them to survive at the top of the mountain, so they could only bring them with their strength. We greet the Spirit King. The 50 Saint Kings at great perfection all dropped to the ground. They were extremely polite. With his back to everyone, the Spirit King said, "This is a tunnel to another world. Pass through it and enter the other world to investigate the situation there. That world's strength is unknown, so you must be careful. If it's possible, you can attempt to negotiate with them." Spirit King, if the people of the other world attack, what should they do? A returnance expert asked. If they attack, you can obviously counterattack. I do know that you'll probably end up dead after you pass through, so leave a fragment of your souls in this soul jade before you pass through. Even if you die there, we can revive you using a secret technique. However, the price will be that your strength will decrease drastically after you leave behind a fragment of your soul. After you are revived, you must cultivate again. The Spirit King paused slightly and then continued, "Of course, you don't need to worry. Once you revive, the Sacred Spirit Hall will supply you with resources to help you become Saint Emperors in the shortest time possible as compensation." The Spirit King produced a pile of jade rocks from his space ring. After splitting them among the 50 Saint Kings at great perfection, he said, "There should be experts guarding the entrance to the other world once you get there. If you can't defeat them, crush this piece of jade. The spatial energy inside will teleport you to a random place in that world. However, you have to remember to not attack them unless they've launched an offensive at you. Understood?" "Yes, sir." The 50 Saint Kings at great perfection replied together. A returnance expert stood forward and pulled out 50 ink-black pieces of jade. He said, "These are soul jades. They can store your souls. Leave a small portion of your souls in them before passing through. The Saint Kings all took a piece of the rock and left behind a fragment of their souls. They all became rather pale and weak after depositing a portion of their souls, but they still entered the tunnel to the Tianyuan continent. The Spirit King and the Origin Realm experts watched the group of Saint Kings disappear into the tunnel. All of them remained there. They did not wish the group they had sent through to fight. They wanted it to investigate the other world so they could have some understanding. As a result, all of them knew that probably all the Saint Kings would die. They would then revive them using the souls deposited in the soul jades and learn of the other world. Not only could the soul jades be used to revive them, it possessed another ability, which allowed them to fully retain their memories. This included everything that would happen in the other world as well as everything they would experience. Chapter 1282, Fourth Layer of the Chaotic Body. Jian Chen sat like a statue within the artifact space. He held on to his last two Class 9 monster cores as the sword spirits hovered above him, assisting him refine the energy of the monster cores and allowing him to reach the fourth layer in the shortest amount of time possible. The two Class 9 monster cores in Jian Chen's hands shone with a hazy glow. The vast and powerful energy within them was rapidly absorbed by Jian Chen, before being refined into chaotic force and fusing into his chaotic Niden. His chaotic Niden had already reached the size of an adult's fist in his dantian. This was the limits of the third layer. The two Class 9 monster cores shrunk at a visible rate. With the assistance of the sword spirits, the energy within them flowed away at an astonishing rate. After a few days of cultivation, Jian Chen had used up all the energy crystals he had obtained from Xianhuang beasts as well as his Class 7 and 8 monster cores. The two Class 9 monster cores were the only ones left. When he absorbed a third of the energy in the monster cores, Jian Chen's chaotic Niden finally ruptured with a rumble. At that moment, strands of chaotic force surged out like a flood, violently leaking from his shattered chaotic Niden. Like wild horses, they rampaged through Jian Chen's body. Jian Chen shuddered. At that moment, he began to expand at a visible rate, expanding to become over half of his regular size. He seemed like a blown-up balloon. This was not the first time Jian Chen had experienced something like this. He immediately dismissed his thoughts and focused his attention, using the cultivation method recorded in the Azulate Sword's law to control and circulate the chaotic force the best he could. Under Jian Chen's experienced circulation, the chaotic force slowly came under his control. It began to be compressed and purified, condensing 10 strands into 5 and 5 into a single strand. Gradually, the chaotic force in Jian Chen's dantian became stronger and more pure. As his chaotic force evolved, his body began to struggle to endure the energy. The fourth layer chaotic force had wreaked havoc within him. His organs, flesh, and blood had all experienced the violent rampaging of the fourth layer chaotic force. Jian Chen's body quickly began to leak with blood. In just a short moment, he became covered in blood with his clothes dyed red as well. Every single drop of blood possessed extremely powerful pulses of energy. Without any doubt, a single drop of his blood was enough to kill a saint ruler. Jian Chen's body underwent the process of continuously being destroyed by the chaotic force before recovering. Every time his body was ruined, strands of fourth layer chaotic force would fuse into his flesh as it recovered, making it even more powerful. His body would strengthen over time as he resisted the rampaging of the fourth layer chaotic force. Chaotic force and the chaotic body increased together. Every time the chaotic force reached a new layer, his chaotic body would need to follow up as well. His body would always be on the same level of strength as the energy he used, or he would not be able to store the chaotic force that had suddenly grown stronger. Right now, Jian Chen's chaotic body was progressing to the fourth layer as it withstood the violent frenzy of the chaotic force. The process lasted for an entire day before coming to an end. Jian Chen's chaotic force and body had reached the fourth layer. Both his chaotic body and chaotic force had strengthened rapidly, but the price was that his fist-sized chaotic Niden had been compressed into the size of a soybean again. There was not a lot of chaotic force in it anymore. The blood on Jian Chen did not coagulate. All of it re-entered his body through his pores, only leaving behind a bloodied set of clothes. Jian Chen slowly opened his eyes. He silently felt his new chaotic body and chaotic force as joy filled his face. He mumbled, "The eighth heavenly layer of Saint King. The fourth layer of the chaotic body gives me the strength of an eighth heavenly layer Saint King, and it's at the peak of the eighth heavenly layer, infinitesimally close to the ninth. The third layer gives me the battle prowess of a Saint King at the third heavenly layer. With the Emperor armament, that becomes the seventh heavenly layer. I wonder what strength I can display if I use the Emperor armament now," Jian Chen mumbled. Not only did his battle prowess increase after reaching the new layer, his defensive capabilities became extremely great as well. The fourth layer of the chaotic body could receive attacks from 8 heavenly layer Saint Kings and emerge unscathed as long as they did not use a Saint tier battle skill. This was because the power of the chaotic body and chaotic force were equivalent. Since the chaotic body could store such powerful chaotic force, just his body would not be something an 8th heavenly layer Saint Kings could injure. They would not even be able to scratch him. Only at the 9th heavenly layer could someone break through his defenses and cause him an injury. However, this injury would only be minuscule. The current toughness of my body is probably far beyond the bodies of Class 9 magical beasts, Jian Chen thought. At the same time, a thought suddenly crossed his mind. If he reached the 5th layer, then even regular Saint Emperors would not be able to scratch him. I've already wasted quite a few days by breaking through to the 4th layer. The upcoming period of time will be extremely valuable. I need to gather a few heavenly resources in the shortest time possible. I can't stick around here any longer, Jian Chen thought. He quickly suppressed his joy, changed into a clean set of clothes, and went to visit the White Tiger and Tai Ta. The White Tiger was still in a slumber right now. It had not completely digested the immortal tier heavenly resources it had ingested a few days ago, but Jian Chen could clearly sense that the White Tiger's strength was rapidly increasing. It was already quite close to the 9th heavenly layer of Saint Ruler. Once I leave the Xianhuang microcosm, the White Tiger will probably become a Class 8 magical beast as well, Jian Chen murmured softly. The White Tiger was a winged tiger beast and possessed a well-endowed advantage. It could devour heavenly resources without any worry to rapidly increase its own strength. If it were any other beast of antiquity or human Saint Ruler, they would have imploded long ago, and even if they could avoid that fate, it would lead to incurable after effects. Jian Chen then visited Tai Ta. He was still absorbing the energy crystals he had obtained from the Xianhuang beasts, now roughly a 7th heavenly layer Saint King. Even Nubis was cultivating. However, he did not increase his own strength, and instead, he was wolfing down the spring water and essence from the springs of life. He was refining his own soul. The several dozen elites of the Flame Mercenaries did not sit around doing nothing either. They worked with the Class 7 magical beasts, who lived in the Saint Artifact, to craft crude wooden boxes for Jian Chen with the wood he had supplied them with. Jian Chen left the artifact space and returned to the Xianhuang microcosm. He advanced through the boundless world by himself, searching for a Class 9 Xianhuang beast to test his strength. Chapter 1283, Encountering a Class 9 Xianhuang beast. Again on the way, Jian Chen constantly searched for reconstruction gel. He had already gathered a massive pile of it in the artifact space. The larger ones had reached the size of a person while the smaller ones were only the size of a fist. Jian Chen had already completed the Sea Goddess request and had already collected a lot of both the reconstruction gel and the essence from the springs of life. Before Jian Chen had entered the microcosm, he had wished to find what the sea goddess needed a little earlier so he could leave right away. Then, he could continue absorbing the energy of the worldly ebb to cultivate. But now, he was not hurried at all. He wished he could stay a little longer in fact. Half a day later, Jian Chen came across another large region of life. This time, he did not search for the heavenly resources in a hurry. He stood beside the spring of life and radiated a powerful presence and made it churn. It engulfed the entire region and was filled with provocation. As soon as Jian Chen's provocative presence radiated out, a deafening beast roar reverberated from the center of the region. With a gentle swish, a black shadow shot toward Jian Chen with lightning-like speed. Jian Chen's eyes suddenly narrowed as he stared at the black shadow that rapidly approached him. He thought, I just happened to be looking for a Class 9 Xianhuang beast to test my strength. I never thought I'd come across one so quickly. Kicking off the ground gently, he began to float away like a fallen leaf. However, he moved extremely quick. In just a few seconds, Jian Chen had retreated to a spot 20 kilometers away with lightning-like speed. The Emperor armament had silently appeared in his right hand as chaotic force surged endlessly into it. It was covered in a dark hazy glow, and the destructive and violent presence it gave off was even heavier than before. However, Jian Chen frowned slightly. He glanced at the Emperor armament in his hand. He could clearly feel that when he injected chaotic force into the Emperor armament, it no longer gave him the feeling like before. When he was still at the third layer, the Emperor armament could easily endure the chaotic force he injected, but it now became rather difficult for the Emperor armament since he had reached the fourth layer. Not only would he encounter some obstruction as he sent his chaotic force into the Emperor armament, he would even destroy the interior slightly. Although the damage was not severe so far, it would deepen with every use, thus, influencing the amount of strength he could use. Looks like the Emperor armament is no longer suitable for me. I need to forge the azulate swords as soon as possible. Only they can withstand chaotic force, Jian Chen sighed inside. The Emperor armament he had used for quite some time already was becoming obsolete. With a furious growl from up ahead, the Xianhuang beast from the region tailed Jian Chen. Although it lacked intelligence, it could still tell that Jian Chen was provoking it. To it, being provoked by an insignificant existence that was not as strong as itself could not be tolerated. Seeing how Jian Chen stopped, the Xianhuang beast did not lunge at Jian Chen in a hurry. It stopped 100 meters away and glared at him. At this moment, Jian Chen saw the Xianhuang beast for the first time. It was a pitch-black, 4-meter-long, panther-like Xianhuang beast that possessed a small horn on its head with a pair of small black wings on its back. Jian Chen became rather stern. Even with his increased strength, he still could not remain careless before a Class 9 Xianhuang beast. Although the one in front of him was not comparable in size to the two alligators, it was quite stronger than the alligators. Suddenly, Jian Chen vanished from where he was with a sway. He aggressively charged at the horned panther to deal the first blow. The panther produced a hearty growl. It sank down before suddenly kicking off the ground, pounding over like an arrow. It opened its wings slightly and became a little faster, charging toward Jian Chen at a speed much greater than the speed he was moving. Jian Chen narrowed his eyes. The panther's speed had caught him off guard, but he did not become flustered at all since he was experienced. Just as he was about to collide with the panther, he made an odd maneuver and avoided the panther's frontal attack. As he brushed past the panther, he stabbed at the cat's belly. At the same time, there was a black flash in front of him. With a crisp crack, his chest had been whipped by the panther's tail. His clothes there turned into fragments instantly, and he was blown away. Jian Chen flew for 50 meters before hitting the ground. He felt a burning pain from his chest. There was already a red mark there. Jian Chen lowered his head to look at his chest. He was shocked inside. If I hadn't reached the fourth layer, just that attack would have punctured my chest and injured me. This Xianhuang beast is very strong, reacts quickly, and can counterattack with its tail. Is it experienced in battle as well? Jian Chen glanced at the panther and saw a meter-long wound on its belly from his attack. It was bleeding. Looks like my full-powered stab can only reach the levels of Saint Kings at great perfection, or maybe just at the level of Saint Emperors. The effect of the Emperor armament on my battle prowess is no longer as great as when I was at the third layer. Jian Chen sighed inside. The Emperor armament had already become rather unsuitable for him. Growl. The panther produced a throaty sound before turning into a black shadow, charging at Jian Chen again. It opened its huge mouth to bite at Jian Chen's head. It seemed even more vicious after becoming injured. Jian Chen showed no fear. Strands of chaotic force churned from his soybean-sized chaotic Niden, filling every corner of his body. He pushed the defenses of the fourth layer to the max. This time, he did not choose to dodge. Instead, he engaged in a head-on battle with the panther. The Emperor armament shone brightly as he blanketed the panther with a flurry of strikes. The afterimages of the sword stacked together and filled up an entire region of space. It was difficult to distinguish between the attacks that were real and the attacks that were fake. The panther became slightly confused. It was unable to tell what was real and fake between the flurry of stabs. Sometimes it felt like all of them were fake, but sometimes it also felt like all of them were real. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.